Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started with today's formal meeting of the Phoenix City Council for March 4th, 2015. We will begin today's meeting with an invocation. Our invocation will be provided by Pastor Jim Moyer from Teen Challenge of Arizona. Pastor Moyer, if you'd come forward, and if you can, please rise.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and let's pray, shall we? Thank you, Lord, for this great city, God, the city that I love more today than I did over 40 years ago, Lord, and I just pray today, God, for our council, Lord. I pray for our mayor, for the staff here, God. I pray they'd be encouraged, God, and I pray, Lord, the passion that got them where they are today would continue to burn. I pray within them, God, I pray they'd be encouraged and just uplifted, God, and the weight, God, of all their responsibilities would just be lighter on them, God, and that they would continue to see with the clarity of vision, God, for our future here in the city, God, that it continues to grow and develop and become even a better place to live. God, I pray protection over us, all of us in this city. God, thank you for the law enforcement, God. Thank you for the military. Thank you, God, for the people that are willing to put their lives on the line, God, that we can live in freedom every day, God. And we just thank you for this time, and I just pray a good meeting. God, may there be a good meeting time today. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor. The next item is a pledge of allegiance led by Councilman Valenzuela.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilman DeCiccio. Councilwoman Gallego. Councilman Gates.
Here.
Councilman Nowakowski.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Valenzuela.
Here.
Councilwoman Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Here. We have an interpreter here with us today. Ms. Marquez, please introduce yourself for the audience.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Leticia Márquez. Si necesita asistencia o traducción al español, por favor, véame. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Would the city clerk please read the 24-hour paragraph?
The titles of the following ordinance and resolution numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Ordinances numbered G6007, S41478 through S41501, and resolutions numbered 21299 through 21307.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a motion relative to council members, boards, and commission nominations.
Move to approve council members' board and commission nominations.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Do we have members of the public here to be sworn in? All right, excellent. So please come to my right, your left, and I will swear you in. And thank you in advance for your service. And then afterwards, please come behind the dais so the individual council members can thank you also for your service. I'll be right there. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Barbara Snyder,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the State of
of
Arizona,
the State of Arizona,
and that I will bear true faith
and that I will bear true
agenda. a suspension of the rules, and the first item will be selection of a new vice mayor. Can I get a suspension of the rules?
Move to suspend the rules to select a new vice mayor.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? It passes unanimously. So now we'll move on to the item on our agenda, selecting the vice mayor. Let me first say, before we move forward with any potential vice mayor, I don't want, no offense to Councilman Nowakowski or Councilman Gates, but it's been a lot of fun with Jim Waring as vice mayor. I mean, those have been the most interesting agenda planning meetings in my time on the city council. And I really want to say thank you, Jim, for your service. You've been diligent. Your attendance record is, I think, perfect. And anytime called upon, when I was unable to participate in a community meeting and asked, I cannot remember a time that you did not make yourself available to represent this city on behalf of this council in the community, and I appreciate all you do. And on political issues, sometimes we disagree, but I always appreciate how you operate in complete and total good faith, always focused in on the issues at hand. I think you've done an outstanding job as vice mayor. Anybody else want to say nice things about the current vice mayor before we take a motion for the next vice mayor?
Can I just say I was a better vice mayor than Gates? Okay, all right, I'll just
I
kidding.
was going to say something nice about Jim, but you can forget
Bill and
that
I go back
now.
a little bit, so just slightly.
Anybody want- Councilwoman, please, yeah, jump.
Yes. I would like to make a motion to nominate Daniel Valenzuela as vice mayor.
We have a motion. I will second that motion. Do you have any comments on that item? Councilman DeCiccio, please.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm not going to vote for this, and here's why. And Danny, I think you're a great guy, you're a nice person, but one of the things that I saw in this last time around was that there was a good balance. I mean, you have a liberal mayor and you had a conservative vice mayor, and that balance I thought was good for the city of Phoenix. Now, and it's not just about philosophies or anything else, but it is about philosophies. I mean, we're going into some fiscal issues in the city of Phoenix, and then when you have a liberal mayor and you have a liberal vice mayor, I don't think that that bodes well for the city of Phoenix and representing a chunk of the city of Phoenix that we need to have. So it's nothing about you personally, Danny. It's literally about the direction of the city of Phoenix and whether or not we can embark on a path of fiscal accountability. And it makes the future a little less certain, because I think we do need fiscal accountability in the city of Phoenix, and we do need to be able to show we have a direction that is literally can fix our structural deficit that I think that Jim brought to the table. Jim did a fantastic job, an amazing job of bringing fiscal issues forward and brought a voice that should not be muted here at the city of Phoenix. So again, I'm going to be voting against this motion, but it's basically about the direction of the city of Phoenix and why. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, council member. I think. Anyway, we'll deal with labels and name calling at another time. But thank you very much for your comments, Councilman. Any other members of the council would like to make comments about the motion that's on the table? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Councilman Valenzuela.
Roll call, if I could have that, Mayor.
Please, you absolutely may have a roll call. Roll call vote requested by Councilman DeCiccio.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Williams. Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, by a vote of 6-3, Councilman Valenzuela will be the new vice mayor. Starting next meeting, you can start your reign as vice mayor. I want to keep this guy as long as I can have him. Councilman Valenzuela, please.
If I can say, I also want to thank Vice Mayor Waring for the strong year plus that he has served our city and served this council as vice mayor. It was an honor, Jim. It was an honor to support you when you were up for vice mayor. And I also want to thank, I want to thank the people of Phoenix for just keeping this process fair and honest. I appreciate the comments from Councilmember DeCiccio. Thank you for explaining your no vote. I will continue to work and reach out to every member on this council to work with all of you individually and collectively. We have a big job to do. In fact, last night, we had a major vote for the future of our city in transportation. Today, we have another major vote in pension reform. For those who voted yes, I thank you. For those who voted no, I thank you. I'm going to work even harder. And, but we will continue to work together and, like I said, move this city forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councilman Valenzuela, and I know you're going to do an outstanding job and look forward to working closely with you and all members of this council.
I'll
Any
do
other
this
com-
extra week for free, Mayor. I just want you to know that. Same lousy pay, same lousy hours.
Mayor, I want to note that Jim Waring is the longest-standing vice mayor in the history of the city of Phoenix.
Actually, I think Bill.
Okay, so the comment was that the vice mayor was the longest-standing mayor, and that was immediately challenged. We could check the record books on that one, but instead, I think we should move on with
I'm willing
today's
to concede.
agenda. Councilwoman.
Question. So
Please.
who's my new seatmate? Is it going to be Jim? Said I have a question. I would like to know who my new seatmate's going to be. Is anybody going to let me know?
We will let you know in advance of next week's meetings.
Thank
One
you.
of the few real powers that the mayor has is the ability to assign a seating chart here, and it is one of the most complex mathematical formulas that we go through, and we'll begin the mechanizations immediately after this meeting.
Does this mean you're going to have me sit with Pat next week? You're thinking about it. I knew it.
I'm going to miss this gentleman right here. I'm going to miss the gentleman to my right. All right, next item on the agenda are liquor license applications, items 2 through 15. Vice Mayor, I know this is very important, the last opportunity to make a
lot of energy
omnibus
to get
liquor
this going,
license
yes.
application motion.
Move to approve items 2 through 15, excluding items 6 and 12.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. Next item is item number 6, is that correct?
It is.
Item number 6 is in District 6, Councilman DeCicio's district, a special event liquor license from the Arizona Law Enforcement Emerald Society Foundation. Councilman DeCicio, how would you like to proceed?
Motion to approve, and might as well do 6 through 9. Would that work?
I think we got all those. I think we had 6
Sorry.
and 15 was the other one was held out?
12.
12, I'm sorry. So 12 is a
that's the other
Nowakowski,
one.
so we'll just do number 6. A motion in favor of 6. Do we have a second?
Second.
Leonard Clark, did you have short comments in favor of item number 6?
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Leonard Clark. I'm a resident of Phoenix, Arizona, and I just wanted to say I hope you'll vote for this because the law enforcement, the special organizations that they have to raise money, a lot of times they don't get the assistance that they should be getting. There's a lot of sacrifices that they make for us. And then I would like to have your permission to combine the other item on KEAT, special event liquor license.
The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yes, as somebody who grew up in the Valley of the Sun, before cable, the internet, Google, and all of these other things that a lot of our younger people take for granted, not all of them, but there was only several channels in Arizona, so that was one of the channels that I watched that educated me enough about government so that I can come down here and now as a citizen contribute testimony, and I'm sure you're happy about that. So I just want to thank KET, and I hope that you'll vote for KEAT television because before internet, long before that, that's all a lot of the children here in the Valley had, and it did a great job, and it still does a great job today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Wendy Allison did not wish to speak, but also in favor of the item. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye on number 6.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. Item number 12, Councilman Nowakowski.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Clark already provided his testimony. Chelsea Fox is here in favor of the item, not wishing to speak. Did you wish to speak? Please, if you want to give a short statement. You are in favor. The motion's in favor.
I'm in
So far, so good.
Very much.
All right, keep going. All right.
Sure, I'm one of the event producers for the KAET. Oh, sorry. I'm working with the event for KAET. This is our 3rd year of producing the Check Please Arizona Festival. Check Please is the #1 show on PBS, and it really supports all of our local restaurants. It's sprung a ton of business in addition to the television show itself. We have about 30 restaurants participating this year who are all really excited for a 3rd year. So we hope you'll approve.
Thank you very much for being here. We have a motion in favor of 12, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is a Item number 16, a public hearing regarding 15th Avenue and Whispering Winds Drive annexation. I do not have my hammer.
Oh, I stole it, I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor stole it.
Doing his
Trying to
best.
hang on as long as possible.
Doing his best Al Haig imitation over there.
The public meeting is now open. Are there any cards on item number 16 to provide testimony on the proposed 15th Avenue and Whispering Winds Drive annexation? Going once, going twice. This public hearing is now closed. We'll now vote on item number 16. Do we have a motion on item number 6? No action on item number 16. We'll now move on to ordinances and resolutions, items number 17 through 50. Vice Mayor, do we have a motion on items 17 through 50?
I think that we do. I move that items 17 through 50 being ordinance number G-6007, S-41478 through S-4152, and resolutions 21299 through 2136 be adopted, except items 18, 19, 22, 23, 24, 33, 38, 40, 42, 43, 44, and 45, and noting that items 34 and 43 have been withdrawn, and items 42 is as corrected. Be adopted.
We have an omnibus motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments on the omnibus motion? Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams. Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, those items passed unanimously. Next item on the agenda is item number 18. This is an item continued from a previous agenda. Mr. City Manager, there were some very important questions that were being asked of our aviation staff about if the city were to continue our involvement with the American Association of Airport Executives, what was that organization going to do to support the people of this city on this issue that we're having, unfortunately, with the FAA. Can we get an answer on that, maybe a public answer on that question before we take a vote?
Yes, Mayor. There is a full report in the packet that was delivered to the council yesterday, but just to reiterate, AAAE is currently working with Phoenix Sky Harbor and others in the airport industry to do the following: develop a policy statement supporting NextGen while stressing the need for proper implementation that protects neighborhoods and includes community involvement and input. This is in direct response to the situation in Phoenix. They are also preparing a joint letter to FAA Administrator Michael Huerta, outlining the position of airports about the changes in flight paths and rebutting information from others about that. They are leading an industry coalition in response to this situation, and they are coordinating all of these cities' requests for congressional action to achieve these goals. So we believe that our participation in AAAE is an important part of the city's ongoing dialogue with FAA in response to the flight path issue.
Before we take a motion, are there additional questions by members of this council for City Manager as a follow-up to the questions that were asked a few weeks ago? We have a motion, Councilman Williams.
Move approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second on item 18? I will second item number 18. Any additional comments or questions from members of this council? Roll call.
DeCiccio.
Oh.
Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
No.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, the item passes on a 6-3 vote. Item number 19 is the payment ordinance. Were there particular elements of the payment ordinance there were cards on? Okay, so why don't we do that separate? Do those first.
Move approval items 19E and N.
We have a motion on 19E and 19N. We pulled those out because there was an individual citizen who wanted to make comments. We have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Ms. Barker, did you wish to provide testimony on items 19E and N?
Can't hear you.
Are you there? Okay. Good afternoon. Diane Barker in District 7, and I'll wait for my councilman to sit down. I made it to the anti-graffiti meeting, councilman. On this item, I'm just making statements because, you know, basically, unless I've researched something, You know, I just for the record, I'm against waste, inefficiency, and lack of responsibility, so I won't make an opinion. But on that particular E, what I suggest that it's a tax audit compliance software, and that the city always, when they get order audits, that they get for best practices the highest assurance that they can get for the money and the need. And that, to me, should be, you know, where it is. I've read too many audits where they don't give an opinion and they have low assurance. They just agree on procedures. And then on the other one, again, a statement. And it has to do with the Western Urban Water Coalition. We give membership for $25,000. And water's very, very important. If you've read lately, there have been several news reports and about the city, you know, doing rather well, but we're at a crisis point here where we have to really look at the western drought, and the city hasn't done anything really for residentials to encourage that we don't have that we have more of a xeriscape. So, and we need to look at agriculture, but I didn't see anything on this where it was saying this is what we get for being a member of that, or what kind of improvement have we made.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barker, for your testimony. So we have a motion on 19E and N. We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes unanimously. Can I get a motion on the remainder of item number 19?
Aren't we going to hold out T?
Holding out, well, make the motion and...
Michael, you wanted to hold out T, right? So move approval 19T.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on 19T. Mr. Vint, you put in 19, all of them. Would you like to provide your testimony now on all of item 19, on the payment ordinance? Now's the time, please. So the item on the table is 19T, but I will count your testimony towards all of the items on 19. So please provide all of your testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. This is, if you've read my letter yet, the last thing about fraud, F-A-F-R-E-U-D. And if you look in the dictionary, it goes into exactly what this mayor and council are doing. They're using trickery to fraud every citizen in the United States. I mean, in the Phoenix, well, United States. This is a disaster. If you just read the first paragraph, and I've got a new set of glasses ordered, and I'm using an old pair. Request to authorize the city controller to disperse funds in the aggregate amount of $1,928,680.76 for the purpose of paying vendors, contractors, claimants, and others. Now, who in the hell is the others? And providing additional payment authority under certain city contracts. Now, there is no way in hell that any of you sitting up there in those big black chairs that we paid for have any idea all the way to you. It's amazing that you would even consider doing what you're doing. Every city council meeting has this. It's either 19, 20, 21, somewhere in that area that's covering that much money. And you just have to consider fraud. People get bookkeepers take businesses down all the time because they make other accounts and they put money in those accounts, and if they go down to the bank, it's in their name. This could be happening here without any doubt. It's too many things here that you're going to take under one account. And you talk about other accounts here that I'll be speaking on, 23, 24, 25, maybe is $1,000 or $20,000 or $10,000. And you're talking about almost $2 million here that you're not even considering.
Thank you, Mr.
Diane brought up one, and it was a very good one. Have you ever had an Intuit? You know,
Thank you very much, Mr.
that's a
Vint.
disgrace.
Appreciate your testimony very much. So we have a motion on item 19T. We have a second. Councilman Nowakowski, did you want to make comments or just pull it? Councilman?
Yes, I have some questions for the airport
Please.
staff. Do we have anybody here?
Our aviation director is here.
So my question is this, is that we're using $60,000 from the Airport Community Noise Reduction Program to pay for Watermill Express for their displacement relocation from the light rail transit and Northwest Extension project. Can we actually use airport funds to relocate individuals off the off the light rail in Northwest Phoenix? And I thought that the fund was closed. We were asking about some families that wanted to use some of this noise reduction program monies, but you basically said that the funds were already
I'm going to ask the city manager. That's an excellent question. I'm going to ask the city manager to answer that question. It appears the question is more of a legal nature in terms of whether or not that's an appropriate use of aviation funds. Mr. City Manager?
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, this appears to be a misprint in the agenda, because what it is doing is $60,000 is coming from the light rail project, and I believe the section header above it is incorrect. So this is for a property on the Northwest Extension. It's paid for by streets. As part of that, it is not it's not an aviation department payment.
Mr. City Attorney, should we continue this item so that way it can be properly agendized?
Yes, Mayor. In fact, it would be proper to do so.
Okay, so Councilman, can I get a substitute motion on a continuance?
Mayor, I'd like to continue this item until the next formal agenda meeting.
Second.
We have a motion for a continuance and a second. All in favor say, what's next meeting? What date?
The 18th.
March.
The 18th, okay. We have a motion for continuance to the 18th. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we need a motion on the remainder of 19, assuming it was properly agendized.
Move to approve item 19 in its entirety.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any comments from members of this council? Any cards? Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams. Waring.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is, Vice Mayor, next item, I apologize.
Move approval item 22.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on item number 22. Do we have any cards on item number 22? Mr. Pat Vint, you have up to 2 minutes to provide testimony on item number 22. Item 22 is Broadway Road annexation for part of the Avenida Rio Salado project in District 7. Mr. Vint.
Yes, again, there's a disaster staring you right in the face. So I believe that you can't see, you can't hear, and you have no idea what's happening. Request to extend and increase the corporate limits of the city of Phoenix. And then you read all down there, and then you get to the bottom. This item is recommended by Ms. Takata and the city clerk department. Where is Lisa Takata? She retired, probably spiked her pension. And now you're going to do this, and she's not even here. How is she going to be accountable and responsible if she's not here? But I've been told that for years. Well, it's too late now. They're not here anymore. That certain employee, or that certain mayor, or that certain council person is not here any longer. We can't do anything about that. Well, that all started with the fraud of Frank Fairbanks first.
All right, Mr. Vint, we've given you some leeway, but you're
Okay,
veering
I'll
too
just
far
say
out.
the past city manager, okay? If I don't mention names, everybody
It's
will
not
know
an issue
it.
of names, it's an issue of staying on topic here. The issue is do you support or oppose the annexation of Broadway Road for the Avenida Rio Salado project, Area 4? You gotta stay with that testimony.
I think that's wonderful, but I don't live down there. If I lived there, I wouldn't want to be in the city limits of Phoenix. I would turn that down. I would get all the ammunition, all the machine guns I got, and I'd defend my property for my rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. So we have a motion in favor of 22. We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Vice Mayor, next item.
Move approval item 23.
Second.
Mr. Vint, it's on 23?
23.
You have testimony on number 23, up to 2 minutes. This last one.
Yes, I am Mr. Vint for people that don't know, but I think most people are going to find out pretty soon. That's not a threat, but that's just for something you take. Again, its item is recommended by Mrs. Takata. Miss Takata, where is she? Who's going to be accountable and responsible when this goes bad, if it does go bad? But it's a tract of land contiguous to and not embracing within the present limits of the city of Phoenix again. So now here we're going to have this situation. Something will come up if I have to take my time to go down there and make it come up. Because I've been in business here in Phoenix since 1956, and I think that's something like 57 years. And I'm getting damn tired of being fraud committed against me. This is a disaster. That's why Phoenix is called a DIP city, D-I-P, a disaster in progress. Is there no one that knows that Ms. Takata is not here any longer? Do you have any idea?
All right, Mr. Vint, we've given you some leeway, but you got to get back on track. It's a proposed Broadway Road, Avenida Rio Salado project, Area 5 annexation. What's your position on that particular issue?
The same answer as before. If I lived there, I would not want to be annexed into the city of Phoenix.
I appreciate your testimony on that item. So we have a motion in favor of 23. We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor. Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, item passes on a 8-0 vote. Next item is item number 24, amend language in foreign trade zone operations agreements. Do we have a motion on item number 24?
Move to approve item 24.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Ms. Barker, did you have testimony on this item number 24?
Council. Diane Barker, District 7, and I'm all for trade and for foreign trade zone. I've done research now, so you can mark my card, Mayor, if you would, that I am opposed to this, and this is my position. The free trade zone has been on an annual for the operations. There are two companies that were Conar and Intel. And what we're asking is to extend this to 20 years annually. That's too long, you know, to review important operations. You know, people should, annually, a person could, you know, handle that too, but even at the minimum 5 years, and I'll tell you why. I'm holding in my hand, and I believe this all ties in because MAG pays $500,000 to be a member of Maricopa County. This is an agreement, and it's over 20 years old, for the working agreement so that the state, ADAQ, Maricopa County, the city of Phoenix, and MAG all are responsible with direct duties in working for the citizenry, for the public, to stop air pollution. And we're in non-attainment serious for air particulates. This agreement, if you looked at it, Mary, your name isn't on there because, you know, you're still, you know, you were a young guy. But I know you're going to have a birthday soon too, you know, and you're probably still young. But where I'm saying is we've got people here that are Ed Fox, Betsy Bayless, Jack Dabolsky signing this, and this is the most current working relationship. We have a lawsuit to possibly lose $1.5 billion, and when I give this to directors, they're silent. They're silent. And it should have been, even if it's current, they should have signed on it in the last year. So I don't like these long agreements.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barker. Mr. Leonard Clark, did you wish to provide testimony? Ms. Barker spoke for you. Thank you very much. Pat Vint, did you wish to provide testimony on the Foreign Trade Zone Operation Agreement amended language? Up to 2 minutes.
Okay, Pat Vint again. And I hope that you can all hear me, because when I watch this on demand on my computer at home, they've got the volume down so low that nobody hears anything. And that's why I had to recommend that people speak into the mic, and you too. When you're up there whispering to each other, we're supposed to know what the hell you're talking about. But this is another DIP city. Request authorize city manager designee to amend the language in the Foreign Trade Zone Operation agreements to Conair Corporation and Intel Corporation to extend for the term of 20 years. If you read the next third paragraph down, no, the second paragraph, that they've been out of a contract since March 2012 and October 2014. I guess it's been going on automatically, so you haven't even had an idea what's been happening. I wouldn't hire any one of you to work for any of my businesses, and I've had a lot of them since 1956. And I'm sorry if I offend you, but I'm really not. I'm really not. If I had employees like you in my businesses, they would have never, ever survived. At one time, when I built my shopping center, Palo Verde Center 2, from 1301 to 1345 East Northern Avenue, we had 22 tenants. And I had to help those people. Some of them, they came in, they wanted to rent, but I said, are you sure, are you positive that you can survive? Well, I think so. I want to be rich like you. I want to be rich like all these business people. I'm tired of being a worker. Some of them just didn't make it.
Thank you very much.
So I helped
Mr.
them
Vint.
all I could. But are you sure my time is up?
The time is up. Got a little bit over the time, but I appreciate your testimony very much. I'm glad you provided clarity on the situation, but I was not previously expecting an offer of an employment from you. All right, so item number 24, we have a motion. We have a second. Roll call.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
Vice Mayor
right.
had a question. I apologize.
My only question is to our staff, so Chris and Paul. This doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anybody's taxes. It's status quo.
Through the Mayor, Vice Mayor, you are correct. It doesn't change anything. It will continue the operation status quo.
Thank you.
And question as well?
Councilwoman.
I had a chance to meet with staff about this, and we confirmed, no surprise, especially with Intel, but the cities in which these projects are located are strongly in support of the decision we are about to make.
Through the Mayor, Councilmember, you are correct. They're very strongly in support, and we have intergovernmental agreements with those cities to tell us how to act together.
I think it's important when we are administrating on behalf of other cities that we check with them and respect their local control. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this item? Councilman Nowakowski? Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. Item passed unanimously. Next item, Vice Mayor.
Move approval, item 33.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on 33. Is this the last card? All right. Mr. Vint, grant of public utility easement for a city project, 7415 South 24th Street, up to 2 minutes.
5 in this section and 1 more on it.
Again, how many times do I have to use the word disaster? This is a real disaster here. Look how many pages you got going on item 33. C, D, E, F, G, H, I, except in emergencies, circumstances such as service restoration. You know, when you run a business, it should be operating like a business, not downtime, nothing. When I had my businesses, and I won't tell you which ones I'm still involved with, but I sometimes had to work 24 hours a day, not 7 days a week, because I'm not like a fireman that gets to sleep on a job. But anyway, something's going to have to be done, because if you read this, and I'm sure none of you have read it, because you don't care. You don't have to care, because you're not accountable, you're not responsible for nothing. The last city attorney we had, Gary Verberg, quit the very next day after he made a disaster of himself. There's that word again. He asked you, all of you, mayor and council, are you accountable or responsible? And he said, no, not as a mayor and council, but the citizens are accountable and responsible for what they say and what they do. Well, like that letter there to the Attorney General of Arizona, we're going to find out.
Once again, you have a chance to speak on any issue you want during citizen comment, but right now you have to speak on the issue of the granting of a public utility easement for a city project at 7415 South 24th Street. Do you want to provide testimony on this proposal before the City Council? Thank you for taking the time to come up to the podium and submit a card. We have a motion in favor of item number 33. We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, item passes unanimously. Next item, Vice Mayor.
Move approval item 38.
Second.
We have a motion on 38. We have a second. Item 38 is apply for and accept a high-intensity drug trafficking Area 25 grant funds. Ms. Barker, do you have testimony on item number 38?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're applying to receive for 2 years $2 million, and this is for the high-intensity drug trafficking area. This seems to be a needed cause because we have to, Phoenix is an area that is a passage point from Mexico through the United States, unfortunately for the drug cartels. But I wanted to hear if I could get staff or Mr. Dohoney, I think is here, to answer this. The city hadn't had the benefit, I think, of Maricopa County paying for the sergeant position, but now we're going to need to absorb some of those costs, and it's going to come out of the general fund, and I wanted to know an estimate of those costs.
All right, Mr. Dohoney or anybody else, Mr. City Manager, the question was, first off, is it an accurate presumption that money that previously was borne by the county is now going to be borne by the city, and do we have an estimate on cost?
Mayor, I don't know about the county, but the issue here is that the grant ends up covering about half the cost of a sergeant. We feel that the position is very important in the drug trafficking, combating drug trafficking that goes on in the police department. And so the city takes half of the cost of the sergeant, and the grant pays for the other half of the sergeant. In general, it's probably between $65,000 and $70,000.
Ms. Barker, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We have a motion and a second in favor of item 38. Roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, item passes unanimously. Next item, Vice Mayor.
I move approval.
This item 40?
Item 40.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on item number 40, which has to do with parking meter contracts. Do we have any cards on item number 40? Any comments by members of this council? Councilman Gates, did you have comments on 40? I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, did you have comments on 40? Okay, we just want an individual vote?
Yes. Thank you.
Item number 40, roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Waring.
No.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, item passes on an 8-1 vote. Next item, I believe, is item number 42. Is that correct, Vice Mayor?
Yes. Move approve item 42.
Do we have a second?
Mayor.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. So we have comments or questions on item 42. Councilman Williams, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank staff because they have taken extraordinary measures this past year to make sure that when we not only stay on budget, that we become more efficient so that we can maintain the current rates and there would be no increases to our citizens. So I just wanted to thank them.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Williams. As was noted, there is zero rate increase recommended by our staff for this budget year. Councilman Nowakowski?
Mayor, I'd just like to ask a question on number 40. It just passed. I'm sorry.
On 40?
Yes.
Okay, so let's finish 42, and then we'll go back to 40 and reconsider it if we need to. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Councilman DeCiccio.
And thank you, Mayor. And this is one of the issues I brought up back in 2010, as staff knows, with the water rates and sewer rate increase. How many years in a row have we not had a water rate increase?
3.
Should be
3 or 4.
it's
I believe it is 3,
3 years.
although it goes back 5 for a total, because one year we raised water rates but lowered
Lowered.
sewer for a total of 0.
So it's about, when you get to the zero net, it's about 5 years. And I think that's important for the public to understand that, at least in the water department area, that for 5 years in a row, it's been a net increase, a net zero for 5 straight years at the City of Phoenix. And I want to commend staff for working really hard at this. This was a big issue back in 2010. For those of us that were here, Councilman Gates remembers that, Councilman Nowakowski. And that's really when the whole water rate increase issue really started coming to a head at the City of Phoenix. And I believe we're the only city in the valley right now that has not had a net increase across the board in the last 5 years. That's my understanding. Not that you would know it right off.
Is that a
the
question,
head.
Councilman?
No.
Ms. Sorensen, do you know the answer to that, or Mr. Young? Or Ms. Peters?
Mayor, City Council, no, off the top of my head, no, I don't know, but we could certainly look into that and find out.
I'd be curious. It's nothing that you want to put a lot of staff time into, but more of a curiosity factor. But I do want to commend staff on that, and thank you. And that this is not a vote for rate increases for the next years.
Correct.
It's literally just for this year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilman Gates?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd echo what Councilman DeCiccio said. I remember in 2010, he was sitting there, and I was down where Councilman Valenzuela was, and we were kind of crying in the night here, and the lone voices, and it's great to see everybody embrace this. We had a citizens group that came together, if you recall, after that, and worked with the water department on efficiencies, and now with Catherine Sorensen leading the water department, we've continued that, and you continue to push for efficiencies. I greatly appreciate that, and I also look to you to continue to reach out to the public as we move forward on this water rates issue, just like we did a few years ago. So thanks to everybody who's been involved in this, including all my colleagues up here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Any other comments by members of this council on item number 42? Vice Mayor?
So I'm going to redo the motion, if I can. I move item 42 as corrected.
Okay, so it's a motion in favor of item 42 as corrected. I assume the second will accept that. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, item passes unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Sorensen and your entire team. Councilwoman Pastor, item number 44.
Mayor.
43 was
I'm sorry.
Did we already withdraw 43? I apologize. We already withdrew 43.
Well, we want to go back to item 40.
Yes, thank you very much. I apologize.
Right.
Councilman Nowakowski, did you have a question
Yes, I
on
had-
what was previously passed? Do you want to ask for reconsideration or just ask the question? And
I just want to ask the question.
Okay, fair enough.
Basically, I just wanted to find out if the city recoups these fees through the customer usage, and also, have we done that update? We're looking at the update in the downtown area on the meters where we were talking about holidays and weekends considerations.
Mayor and Councilman Nowakowski, we're continuing to monitor that as we go along with our current rate structure that we have. And certainly we can come back and report on some of those activities.
He asked if we.
And the fees, recovery?
With regards to the fees, we are monitoring that. There's nothing that has been increased, but we can also bring forth a report on the fees as well.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, I think the question you're asking is, do we collect more money than we pay in these fees? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Councilman? Okay, good. So we'll move on in our agenda. 43 was withdrawn. We're now on item number 43 and 45. Councilwoman Pastor?
I believe it's item 44.
44 and 45, I apologize.
Item 44 and 45, I would like to continue to March 18th.
Second.
So we have a request to continue to March 18th. I have a series of cards here. People would like to testify on either 44 or 45. So I'll accept testimony, but only on the issue of the request for a continuance. If voted on by this council, we'll deal with the underlying issue in 44 and 45 at a later meeting. Leonard Clark, did you still wish to provide testimony on the continuance? Is he on?
Yeah, I only ask that if you continue it, that you continue to take into account the situation right now in the Arizona legislature, whereby they're having huge drastic cuts. So in a way, I actually wish you would not put it off, because as you know, the governor's getting ready to make some outrageous cuts to K through 12 funding, and I think this $100 million IDA bond, tax-free bonding, that they can just come to you for 9 votes, while the rest of us out in the public education community have to go out and knock on tens of thousands of doors. I just think that's a very arbitrary and unfair situation. So please don't forget, the people out there right now in our city are worried about drastic cuts to their public education, while you're getting ready set to give out $100 million in tax-free bonding. And it's not right, because the public schools can't do that. They've got to go knock on doors. So I wish you would consider it now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know you want us to vote on it today. The motion on the table is a continuance. Ms. Ruth Ann Marston, did you wish to provide testimony on the proposed continuance? Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council. Is this on? Mm-hmm. Good. We would support a continuance. We would always like to support the Industrial Development Authority, and we don't have enough information on this item to do that at this time.
Thank you very much. And so we'll make sure we contact Ruth Ann. She's one of our top education leaders. Make sure she understands the role of the IDA and what they've done in education issues. Ms. Louisa Stark, good to see you. Do you wish to provide testimony on the continuance proposal?
No, I'm certainly for the continuance, and I am certainly in accord with the former speakers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stark. Ms. Eileen Sigmund, you've indicated you're in favor of the underlying item, but the only issue on the table is a continuance. Did you wish to provide testimony on the continuance? Okay, thank you very much. Imogene Bennett. Imogene Bennett, I hope I pronounced that correctly. You did not wish to speak. It's only a continuance? Okay. So the motion is to continue it till the 18th for a 2-week continuance. We have a motion. We have a second.
Just a quick question.
Councilman
Very
DeCiccio,
quick.
please.
Just want to make sure that the basis school is not going to have a negative impact by delaying this funding. Would there be a negative impact because
Mr. Manager, you want to answer that, or
basic
Mr. Paul
cells?
Blue?
Schools have to try to get open in time, and they need the funding to do that.
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, my understanding is from staff that we can accommodate this 2-week delay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we have a motion to continue. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item, Vice Mayor.
We're on to 51.
Okay.
We're
Here on item
detention?
number 51. I think we want to hear 51 to be the last item on today's agenda, so let's hold out 51 and move on with the rest of the agenda.
Okay. I move items 51 through 56 be adopted.
You said 51.
Hold out 51, you please.
Well, I was going to do that. All right. So items 51 through, or I guess 52 through 56. But I'm also holding out 52. Yes. So, all right, items 53 through 56 be adopted. You backseat drivers, you're killing me. All right.
So we have a motion for items 53 through 56. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any cards on those items? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 52, Vice Mayor.
Move approval, item 52.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. This is a U.S. Department of Justice Smart Policing grant that we're applying for. Mr. Clark, did you have testimony on this item?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Leonard Clark. I'm a resident of Phoenix. The reason I want to talk about it is I had a chance to testify on some things at the state legislature right now that are affecting what you're doing or going to do. First of all, I would like to say I support this. I know there are both sides. One side that says, hey, this isn't really going to help us. Cameras aren't really going to help. And the other side, what I kind of take to is I think it helps both the officers and it helps the people. I think it's a start. We aren't going to have perfection, just like in the legislature. They're now working on legislation. It looks like, I'm not sure if the governor has signed it, whereby there are going to be some specific state law where your police chief, he was there, and the other police chiefs are going to have to say, well, to protect our officers, to protect the people, there are certain times these body cameras can be turned on and they can be turned off. And I just think that it was encouraging to see bipartisan support for this type of what you're voting on right now. They're already trying to lay the groundwork for what the police chiefs are going to be able to tell their officers, because we want to be fair to both. So I hope that you vote for this. I think that I'm not sure how many other cities in Arizona are doing it. I know there might be a few, but I think that we are models for the rest of the valley, and I would like to applaud you for what you're doing. I think it's a start, but I still believe we need an independent person to look into things like the President's Commission has just done here at the Justice Department. So thank you very much, and I hope you'll vote for it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. We have a motion in favor of 52. We have a second. Any comments by members of this council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item, item number 57, Vice Mayor.
Move approval, item 57.
Second.
We have a, no, I'm sorry. The request is a motion to continue. Did you wish to continue or move approval?
Sure, well, let's continue it. I move a continuance.
We have a motion for continuance. We have a second. Councilman Valenzuela, this is actually in your district, I believe. Are you okay with a continuance? On item number 57, 103rd and Campbell Avenues. This is on our planning and zoning agenda.
Yes, continue to May 13th.
Okay, we have a motion to continue to May 13th. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is item number 58. And 58 is it's labeled as a general plan update, but I think if we vote in favor of it, this will allow it to move forward to the council vote. And so before we begin with that item, I think I probably speak on behalf of every single member of this council, and that we're about to hear the report, but we are greatly, greatly appreciative of the incredible amount of professional work put on by Mo Stein and our citizen committee, our general plan committee. Awesome work that we're about to see. Alan Stevenson, you and your team. And what I want, before we begin, because I know we're going to see the work, I just want to be pointing out to everyone in this audience, virtually all of this work, 95% or more of the work was done in-house. Both the drafting of the plan itself, and in terms of the concepts, the word drafting, and actually the design that you're about to see, which I think is a very professional design. We have incredibly talented people working with us in the city in terms of our citizens and our staff, and in my humble opinion, this represents some of our best work. With that, Mr. Neymark, you want to introduce the item? Mr. Stevenson, our Planning and Zoning Director.
Mayor, members of council, thank you. It's my pleasure here to present our general plan update, which is called Plan Phoenix. The general plan provides a policy guidance on growth, development, redevelopment, conservation, and infrastructure investment for the city of Phoenix. It is a plan that, as you will see, has had a significant amount of public involvement. I want to start off by thanking the mayor and council for their leadership on this effort. You put together the leadership committee, attended meetings in your council districts to get input, and without your overall leadership, we wouldn't be here as a success today right now. I also want to thank Mo Stein and the leadership committee. We do have also here in the audience Dr. Carol Poor, Dr. George Brooks, Teresa Bryce, Peggy Eastburn, Devin Del Placio, and Greg Brunell as part of our leadership committee here. So they're out in the audience here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Councilwoman Kate Gallego was also a member of this committee prior to getting elected to represent District 8. And so it's with that fantastic group that's provided leadership over the last couple of years to Josh Bednarik, who's been our project manager, and his staff on this. And then I'd also like to really thank the citizens, because without the citizens throughout this time, we really wouldn't have all the input that we have. We've got about 13,000 different comments, over 200 plus public meetings, and so we really have, this is a plan that the people put together for us, and we're happy here to present that today. With that, we also do want to thank our sister departments. It's not just a plan for the Planning and Development Department. We've had numerous departments, streets, parks, everyone has been involved in this to come up with this entire plan. And with that, I want to turn it over to Mo Stein.
Thank you, Alan, and Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to brief you on the work that we've been doing for now over 3 years. When you asked us to take on the task of updating our general plan, we took that in an unusual way. Planning is best when it's informed, when it brings people together, when it's bottom up and not top down. And one of the things that we said we wanted to do, Mayor, was to use the power of community, the power of listening, the power of what we all believe in together, and share that in terms of creating a plan. Rather than writing a code, when there's nothing wrong with code, and we all know that the mayor, you and I and others were heavily involved in our current general plan when we adopted it, and it served us well. We chose to write the story of what we thought was really about Phoenix. And rather than to create that story, we asked the citizens of our community what that story was all about. And we went on what I would call the largest listening adventure we've ever done in terms of being in all places, all parts, all districts, all people, and frankly, all walks of this community by asking people 2 really important questions. And we learned something about that very, very quickly. We learned that the citizens of Phoenix love our city, and they were able to tell us very specific items about that, and they had big ideas. In fact, they didn't have big ideas, they had extraordinary ideas. And our job was to try to put that together. One of the things we found out was that in asking those questions, it was easy to find the commonality of what people believed in. And that was a brand of a city, a brand of our plan that looked forward and not backwards, a process of design that said we will move forward because we have vision and we will believe in it, but we'll always make sure that we've made sure that where we've been is where we also want to go. And I think that's really part of the power of design and how we've used that to create our document. Then we decided to put that all together. Our process began with incredible amounts of notes, and I remember clearly the youngest person who testified and went to our committee was a young man at the school at 103rd Avenue and Camelback? Right around Camelback. And he came and he talked to us about parades and marching bands. And I asked him very clearly, you know, did your mom ask you to do this? He goes, no, I just like marching bands. And then we had the gentleman who was 100 years old, and he told us he'd been here, how long he'd been here, and why he'd been here, and what it meant to him, and the similar kinds of tone that came out about the story. We decided to tell that story not from our point of view, but from the citizens of Phoenix. We looked at our notes, we made council presentations to you all, we prepared an interim report, and we got your feedback, and we took it back to the community. We've been to, and Josh will give you a little bit of update, but we have been to every village, every board, every commission that'll hear us, every civic group that'll hear us. And at every step along the way, we continue to ask the same questions. What do you love about Phoenix, and what's your big idea? And what we were able to do was to coalesce that into our document. And Mayor, I really appreciate your comments about the quality of what we produced. We believe that if our document tells a great story and and appeals to people, then they can continue to tell this great story that we have in Phoenix. Not everybody needs to know all 186 pages of this document, but what they need to say, what they need to know is what it means to them and what they can connect to. And I've asked Josh to tell us a little bit about those key elements and the 5 core values about our plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Mayor, members of the council, this is the framework for the general plan that's really been around for about a year now and has held together as we've taken this out to the public. We tried to make it as simple as possible for everyone to understand what we're wanting to achieve as a city. And it's basically broken up into 4 parts. The top of the framework is our vision, what we want to be as a city. And we talk a lot in this general plan about being a more connected city, a connected oasis. The next layer down are 3 community benefits: prosperity, health, and environment. We really want to use those as new tools for us moving forward in long-range planning. The next layer are our 5 core values. That's really where the bulk of the document lives, the 5 things we want to focus on moving into the future. And then the last layer is implementation. How are we going to make this happen? And we outline everything from plans to codes to partnerships. So the 2015 general plan is something we're certainly proud of. I want to spend a second and just recognize some of the team members we have with us today and that have been working on this project with us for the last 2.5 years. Mark Thornton, Craig Mavis, Zandon Keating, Ray Brown, who's with us, who really helped kind of come up with the design for the document. They deserve a ton of credit, along with the rest of the long-range team, Catherine Coles and Kurt Upton especially.
Can they please stand up just to recognize them?
Sure, absolutely.
Because it's been 2 long years, so.
All right, so the request by Councilman Pastor is for those excellent professionals as mentioned by Josh Podernick, stand up. Thank you for your great work.
So the document itself is essentially broken up into 4 parts. Part 1 outlines or provides an overview of that framework that I just went through. Part 2 addresses everything from land use to scenic corridors. An important note about land use: the general plan map is part of this document. We aren't unilaterally as staff proposing any changes to that map as part of this update. We do outline some steps on how we want to work with the community, the Planning Commission, the Village Planning Committees, the Council to go and update that map into the future. Part 3 is where the core values live. That's pretty much the bulk of the document, where all the goals, policies, and strategies are found. And then Part 4 talks about moving forward, those next steps, developing the character area plans with the Village Planning Committees. And talking about something that we've really found important about this whole project is that the process is more important than the product. I'm happy and proud to report that we've gone through a rigorous review of the document and have support across the board from everyone from the Historic Preservation Commission, Parks and Recreation Board, Village Planning Committees, Planning Commission, the Plan Phoenix Leadership Committee, and then most recently the City Council Neighborhood Housing and Development Subcommittee. I'm going to pass it back to Alan to talk about next steps.
Actually, I'm going to grab this and then give it to Alan. Josh mentioned something very important about our belief about the process. Mayor, when you gave us the charge to do this work, you asked us not just to create the plan, but to create something that was bigger than a plan. And we did that by really understanding our motto that the process is as important as the product. The product will stand on its own. The product will, we believe, not change the way we plan. We think it will inform the way we plan and make it more available to everybody, be you a proponent or not a proponent, be you a village committee member, a resident, a neighbor, or elected official, or professional. We believe we created something that speaks to what the quality of planning, the quality of the community that our city really wants to be. But the process doesn't end by the adoption of this product, if you would. The state, as you know, mandates that the city address 17 core elements every 10 years. That's a regulatory requirement. We did that, but we did it in a way by creating the 5 core values. And our 5 core values have this wonderful chart, it's on page 30, that intersects the 5 core values with the 17 elements, and that's what we're delivering today, is how that story is told by those intersections and why we can create this powerful message. In addition, we said that planning must continue. And we believe that the power of this plan isn't by creating it every 10 years, but it's an ongoing process by which we simply modify and hit the save button when we need to do it, because planning should continue. And to do that through the good graces of the Phoenix IDA and the Arizona Community Foundation, Mayor, you were able to help us ask for grants, and those grants did several things. It allowed us to present our document in a form that we think is readable and credible, and that people will be compelled to do it. Our editors were talking to us one day, and they started talking about the magazine. And they said, oh, no, sorry. We said, no, do that. People love to pick up magazines because if you remember anything, you'll remember a word or two, and that's all we need, is that little one piece of remembrance. But we also used part of that grant to help create workshops, which we will roll out in the latter part of 2015 and into 2016, where the village planning committees and citizen planning members, for the first time in many years, will have the opportunity to really learn and to come together, and probably the greatest opportunity of our generation to really become citizen planners and be involved and to create and build on that platform that we've tried to do. And lastly, I'd point out something that we're very proud of, and that is that we've created a mechanism by which our plan continues by bringing back to you an annual mechanism for report. We don't believe that you should just create metrics that say, here's what you want to do. We think we should report on what we've done, what we've accomplished, what we didn't accomplish, where we were right, and perhaps where we need to go a little bit different. And we intend to make those reports to you on an annual basis. This committee would hopefully be able to do that and bring that and be held to a standard that says we believe in our plan enough that if we know we have to make new recommendations, we're prepared to do so and bring those to you. And we're very proud of the fact that the tools are in our document that allow us to do that in a clear manner. Alan?
Thank you, Mo. I just want to point out on the screen our next steps here. We'll be back before you on March 18th, asking for referral of the general plan to the August 15th ballot, and then we'll be back on April 15th as part of the action to approve the ballot language at that time related to the general plan as well. And with that, I believe, Mayor, this one we do have to have a public hearing as related to the general plan adoption too. So we're happy to answer any questions or however you'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you for that outstanding presentation. I think the best way to proceed is to open the public hearing, take any public comments on it, close the public hearing, and then I'll turn to members of the council who may have questions based upon the outstanding presentation. Many people watching at home may not have a physical copy of this plan, the 108 pages, but want to maybe view it on their home computers or our iPads. Where can they get it electronically?
Mayor, members of the council, if they went to www.myplanphx.com, it's available online there.
myplanphx.com. All right, here we go. We're going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is now open on item number 58, the proposed general plan for the city of Phoenix. I have two cards on this item. Ms. Greta Rogers, did you wish to provide testimony on item number 58, followed by Ms. Barker, and anyone else in the audience wishing to provide commentary on item number 58? Now is the time. Members of the Leadership Committee, if you want to come provide testimony, feel free. Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and people in attendance. My name is Greta Rogers. I worked on the general plan that we have been operating on now for 13 years. First, I want to thank Mo Stein for leading this effort. He is a wise and dedicated citizen to our city and has been for decades. Thank you, Mo. Honor the plan in your deliberations between now and the 18th of March and next April 15. And the citizens who worked diligently and hard to revise the current plan to bring it up to date for current Phoenix growth, development, and living. Do not continue to adulterate and disrespect the input and the work that's gone into this to achieve this goal to the advantage of developers and business applicants who want zoning change and major variances to the general plan. We don't prostitute ourselves to money. And don't do it anymore. We went through this now for over 15 years, and it's disgusting. Honor these people's work and their proposal. They represent all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers. Ms. Barker, did you provide testimony on this item?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Diane Barker. I am for prosperity, health, and environment. And I try to see if I could reach that goal. I'm far from it, certainly on the first one, but thank you, and thank you for the work. I was able to attend a meeting. I'm going to read that document. Maybe have an executive summary, though, for people that are, kind of busy. And I noticed that there were, 5 gentlemen here from the committee, but I think there were some women on that committee, too, so I'm glad to hear that, and I wish you, a lot of luck. I did voice this to Rick Neymark, but I'd like to say it again. When we had a meeting, and Danny Valenzuela was there too, and I brought my can of Campbell's to add if you could get free parking if you did. And I says, well, what do I get for coming here by bicycle? And that's one of the goals in the future, with all of our plans for prosperity, health, and environment, to make it a livable, walkable city. Or if I would have come by bus or light rail, there wasn't an incentive. And I'm asking that we don't discriminate. Phoenix has come a long, long way not discriminating against people. But let's not discriminate about the way that we get around either. I'll challenge y'all. On my bicycle, we attended 2 meetings after the meeting yesterday, and I beat the light rail, I beat the buses, I beat the cars, I beat the walkers. So come on, let's get with it and give some incentive for people that are a little different.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barker. The next speaker will be Dr. Carol Poor, who was a key member of our leadership committee. Dr. Poor, good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor, and hello, Council. It was an honor to serve on the Leadership Committee as Vice Chairman, and I must say that I think that we've created a national exemplar for public input of the public process and civic engagement, and several things along the way were very exciting to me. Not only did we meet in every nook and cranny of the city of Phoenix, and the diverse input was truly listened to, and drafts were changed because of the input. But also, when we conducted our summit at the City Hall, it was one of the most successful events I believe we've ever had as a city. We had hundreds of citizens from all walks coming here and engaging in some of the workshops and dialogues. Finally, I think that the idea of having a web-based plan that is dynamic, it opens the door for additional public input and participation over time, workshops, village workshops, so in every part of the city on an ongoing basis. I think that this idea of interactivity and accessible to all through the web and through ongoing workshops is exceptional. So I just want to tell you, I think that we have created a national model. It's user-friendly, it's beautiful and vibrant, and it's not finished. This will be an ongoing dialogue that continues to encourage public input and civic engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Poor. I have no other cards on this item. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on the public hearing on the proposed general plan? Going once, going twice. The public hearing is now closed. I will now turn to members of our City Council on this issue, noting that this, per state law, this will require 2/3 vote in order to continue with this item. I think it would come back before this council on the 18th for a final vote, and then if adopted, it would then go on the ballot in August. Do we have any comments or questions or motion? Councilman Pastor, please.
Mayor, I just wanted to recognize the Leadership Committee, and so if the Leadership Committee could also stand up and be recognized for all their hard work, that would be great.
Members of the Leadership Committee, please rise.
Time and dedication.
Outstanding work.
motion?
That's one way to proceed. We can make a motion, see if we can get a second, and then see if there's additional comments by members of this council, comments or questions.
I'd like to make,
Please, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to move item 58, the general plan update, Plan Phoenix.
And adopt the related resolution?
Yes.
All right, so the motion to approve for the Neighborhoods, Housing, and Development Subcommittee recommendation and adopt the related resolution. Do we have a second on that item? We have a second. Now we'll turn to the council. So you have any questions or comments on the proposed general plan? Councilor Nowakowski? Alan, did you want to, Mr. Stevenson, did you want to add?
No, Mayor, Councilman Okowski, the mayor got it, just per NHD subcommittee.
Okay. All right, so the proper motion, we have a second. Comments by members of this council? Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to congratulate everybody that worked on this. The leadership rep did a great job. I will tell you, staff, Josh, Ellen, you did a terrific job. I can remember the first meeting way back when, and we drug people out. In fact, I think Greta was there at the very first meeting. It was in my district, if you recall. And how far you came is just remarkable. And you included every dynamic piece of this city and looked not only at today but towards the future. And I think it is a very exciting document. I think it is a plan that's very workable. That's one that can be embraced by every district and every person that lives here. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a model for the U.S. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Other comments by members of this council? Councilman DeCiccio?
Very quickly, I want to thank Alan, your entire team, that were able to do this from your city staff. I know how hard you worked on it. Mo, Josh, amazing. The work that you put into this. I mean, you never knew where this plan was going to go at the very beginning, and it came out to this, I think, really cool work that you did. And I remember someone saying that it's probably a model for the nation. I cannot think of any other city in the country that's put together a plan like this. The next part of the work deals with the specifics that are going to go into this, and it's going to allow for the decentralization for each of us to have an input on that. I mean, if you look at this, there's not always everything that you like in it, but at the end of the day, it covered as much as you could ever find in a plan, and now it allows each district and each individuality of that district to be able to have an input in here of those specific things. It's way different than we've ever done. And Alan, you've got to, I mean, I know you want me to make sure I pass the credit to your staff, but the fact that you led this thing tells us a lot, and you've done a fantastic job. Thanks. And Mo, thanks, Josh, and the rest of the team.
Councilman Nowakowski.
Mayor, I just want to thank our staff and all the individuals that participated. What a great process. I remember going to the first meetings and you were telling people, dream of what you want to have in your neighborhood, what you want to have in your city. And you had children there drawing pictures and saying, hey, we want to have a Disneyland, we want to have this and that. So you even got the children involved, and I like that concept of dreaming. And this is really all of our dreams coming together for the city of Phoenix, and I want to really thank you all. And what I like about this plan is it's not just a plan that you put on the shelf. It has matrix in there that you can use on a daily basis. You have ongoing tools. And what I liked about Mo is that how you talked about coming back on an annual basis and giving us updates. And that's the tools that we need as a city of Phoenix to remind us. Mrs. Rogers talked about is that sometimes we forget what the plans were, and we have developers coming in here and changing the plans. This way, on an annual basis, we can actually keep focus on what the community wanted, and I really want to thank you. The other thing is, I think it's really important that we send a copy of this to the FAA so they understand that we as a city have gone on for years and decades in creating a plan for our city. We have an airport, we have runways, and we have flight paths that we have designed the city around. And we have industrial parks where we would like to have our airplanes go over, not into our neighborhoods. So we design our city. We have a plan that we take out every 10 years to our community with that in consideration. So next time the FAA comes into our city, they should take this into consideration where we want those flight paths. So if you have a chance, please send them a copy so they can see our master plan for our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Nowakowski. On message. Good job. Councilwoman Gallego, who formerly served on the Leadership Committee and then unfortunately was demoted to the City Council. Councilwoman.
These things happen. But it certainly was my honor to serve as the first vice chair, although maybe not the best vice chair of the general plan. And thank you to the committee. It was an honor to serve with you. It was a demanding committee assignment. We had hundreds of meetings and thousands of comments, but well worth it. Many people went through great professional and personal challenges and still remained committed. And we really thank you for all the time for creating a great document. This is a major step forward in our work to create a thriving city where people want to live and conduct business. This really is a game changer. It has some important changes from past general plans. Throughout the city, people said, we value our downtown, and we want to make that a real theme of this plan. We also heard a lot about connectivity. The number one thing that people told us in this process was they wanted a more connected city. And the good news is we're really connecting all of our planning together. I think yesterday's vote will be a step forward in creating that connected city. And the vote on the Transportation Committee took these comments into consideration. They actually modeled their process based on the general plan process. And we're hearing that over and over again. People are saying the general plan process was a wonderful process. Let's keep doing that. It was also a very fun process. It was wonderful to have meetings at a barber shop, an ice cream parlor. We really got out to where the community was and got feedback from people wherever they were. Some people spoke to us online. Some people came to more traditional meetings, and some people came to what we affectionately call the fun meetings out in the community. So thank you to all of our staff. Thank you to your families for sharing you on those late nights. It was a real commitment, and I'm so glad we decided to do this. Years ago, the city had a debate. I remember Councilwoman Neely being there, so it was quite a while ago, and we had a conversation about whether we wanted to do a robust process, and I feel like we made the right decision. This was a community dialogue that has helped us in many areas of the city, and it will continue to help us. We'll continue to have these dialogues. It's wonderful that the process will continue. So thank you to everyone. I look forward to supporting this motion.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Any other comments by members of this council? Councilman Gates?
Thank you, Mayor. And Mayor, thanks for your vision for this, for Plan Phoenix. I think it's what kicked all this off, and this has been a wonderful process. I enjoyed my involvement in it. Josh, Craig, everybody, I mean, you guys did an amazing job. Alan, great job with the leadership, and Mo and the entire citizen group. I especially appreciated we had some new folks get involved in the citizens community committee who've are not the usual suspects on city boards and commissions, and I think that's been very good for the process. Councilman DeCiccio alluded to this a little bit. I just want to make sure people aren't disappointed that when they go to look at this at the ballot in August, they're not going to see something that lays out a completely different vision for their neighborhood. That's not part of this. That's to come. So people need to understand that it really is something different. It is revolutionary. It's 30,000 foot, but it's not 5,000 foot. It's not 1,000-foot level. That's to come later. So I just think it's important that people understand what this is a visionary document. It's something that we don't do too often in the community. So I'm happy that's what we've done here, and want to thank everybody who's been involved. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Valenzuela?
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank the committee, Mo Stein, Alan Stevenson, Josh, all of you, including our colleague up here, Kate Gallego, who was vice chair when this whole thing began. And I'm looking at some others out in the audience who have committed, city employees, volunteers, who have made a commitment. And what you have done for the city of Phoenix in truly getting the fingerprints of Phoenicians on this plan, I think is, it's monumental. I mean, it's never been done to this extent. And I want to thank you for your leadership in doing that. Public input is not a box that simply gets checked. I've said it a million times. Sometimes my colleagues poke fun, but you know, public input is not a box that simply gets checked. We should be governing based on public input. And this is public input here. We have a plan, something to go off of. It's no one's guess. This actually has real information, talks about where it comes from. This is a big deal. So thank you so much for the commitment. I want to thank Kate for a couple of things, for being part of the process, but also it was part of your leadership that brought AmeriCorps Vista along, where there's a very special person in the audience, Bithya Ratnasamy, who I'm honored to be working with on the District 5 team. You see, Bithya was working on this My Plan Phoenix program when the District 5 team stole her from planning. She was just amazing. And no, we stole her, Laura. We didn't just take her. So, but you know, to help continue the efforts, and obviously that's just what we're driven in District 5 is just community process. But you know, to bring very bright youth along throughout the country to want to be here for programs like this, engaging, you know, I mean, look, going over into coffee shops and senior centers, and of course, I remember doing a couple of these at the Washington Activity Center, one in particular, and they were all students. They were all kids. And why not? We're talking about something, you know, by the time much of this is going to be laid out and implemented, these students will be parents and they'll be raising their families in this city, so why not get their input? So, great job. Congratulations, Rick Neymark, Mr. Neymark, congratulations. I know he's looking at me once, just joking. No, but thank you to all of our city staff, all of our volunteers, and every Phoenician who put their fingerprints on this plan, who took the time to take surveys, who came out to public meetings, who answered a question. Thank you. You're making our city better because of your time and your effort.
Thank you very much, Councilman Valenzuela. Any other comments by members of this council? I'll just add very quickly, Mo, appreciate you and I were simpatico on this. This is the people's plan, and the whole point was to put together the best leadership team possible to make sure that every nook and cranny of the city had every opportunity to provide input onto this plan. And we try to do things in unique and fun ways, having My Plan Phoenix meetings in places where people weren't expecting it. Sports bars up in District 2, where we just showed up and asked people at the sports bar what they loved about Phoenix, what would they want changed about Phoenix, on the light rail line. At AG's Barbershop in District 8, which is actually probably the very best My Plan Phoenix meeting that I had the fortune to participate in, and got a good haircut, by the way, too, while I was there. Using MindMixer, which is a wonderfully creative online opportunity for people to participate. So they didn't have to physically come to meetings, because so many people, particularly the millennial generation, maybe not would like to spend their time coming to meetings, but feel very comfortable using their iPhone or other smartphone and still have the opportunity to participate. And so as a result, I think we maxed it out, if you will, in terms of the amount of community participation. And Mo, you've ingrained in me so over and over again that in so many ways the process is the plan. If you have the right process, the right reach out, you're going to get a better net result. And I think that's exactly what we got with this general plan. And not being stuck to convention when it comes to the silos that could be the 17 required elements. Don't be trapped by those elements and have unique chapters for each of the elements. Instead, incorporate those elements into our core values. And that's what we exactly did across this plan. So anybody watching at home, go to myplanphx.com if you want to take a look at it yourself. Assuming the City Council votes in favor, this will be on the ballot in August, and we're going to need the community support to make this our plan, the community plan, the general plan for the City of Phoenix. With that, we're going to take a roll call vote. Again, this needs a 2/3 vote of the City Council per state law. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Waring. No. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so the item passes on an 8-1 vote. I'm not good at math, but I think that's 2/3. We're good to go. So we'll see you then on the 18th for the form of the ballot. Congratulations, Mo Stein. Thank you for your leadership and all of the work that you provided. And to the Leadership Committee, once again, we owe you a great debt of gratitude. Next item on the agenda is the final item on today's agenda, which is item number 51. Everyone else can leave except Rick Naymark. You got to stay on this one.
Will it be as long as last night, Mayor?
So the next item on the agenda is item number 51, to have a hearing on the proposed recommendations from the Civilian Retirement Security Ad Hoc Committee. That committee was chaired by two colleagues on our City Council, Councilman Williams and Councilman Valenzuela. I'm going to turn the floor to them to see how you'd like to proceed. Would you like to hear an overview from professional staff before we put any motion on the floor?
I think it's most fitting that staff give us the overview, give an explanation of how we got here, and emphasize that we are talking that this does not affect public safety.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Rick Naymark, then, we give please an overview of what's included in the recommendations. Then I'll turn it to members of the, we have a lot of cards here, so we'll decide, I guess, at that point whether a motion or hear the cards first, and then a motion, and then council comments and questions. Mr. Naymark.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We're here today to present recommendations that were made by the Civilian Retirement Security Ad Hoc Committee. And there's a detailed report in your backup packet that it will go into a lot more detail than we will today. Over 3 months, the committee met and reviewed information and made recommendations, which we will summarize for you today, and ultimately we would request your direction for referral of these items to the ballot. As you know, substantial pension reform has already occurred thanks to your leadership, and due to that pension reform, we are on track to save $830 million over time. In fact, just last week you saw a presentation by the city manager and the budget director talking about how pension growth for COPERS has begun to flatten out as a result of a lot of that. However, the committee in its studies found that there were some issues that needed to be addressed in pension reform, and we're going to talk through those, and their recommendation attempts to address those issues.
Mayor, we do have a member of the committee that's sitting there. I think any members of the committee ought to join them.
Yes, thank you. And I was actually planning to introduce them. So here with me today is Sam Feldman from the city manager's office, and Scott Miller is also here from our retirement office, if there are any questions about the, how the system operates.
Excellent. And Pete Karias, who is a member of the ad hoc committee, has joined at the table as well.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Pete. And I just did want to put up a photo of all of our committee members. This is a good, diverse group of business and community leaders. They spent a lot of time pouring through a ton of information, a lot of analysis and data. We had the help of an actuary, the Siegel Company, and outside legal counsel from Littler Mendelson. So the kinds of legal briefings you've received, they also received.
They obviously have big smiles. Is that taken at the beginning of the process or at the end?
We wore them out, Mayor. So just for background and for the viewing public, just wanted to mention a little bit about the City of Phoenix employees' retirement system called COPERS. COPERS was adopted by the voters of Phoenix, set up in the city charter to develop a retirement system for our city employees. This is exclusive of our police officers and firefighters and our elected officials who are covered under plans administered by the state. We currently have over 7,700 active members, meaning city employees, and about 6,300 retired members. The dog is not a member. We do have an average annual benefit now that is around $30,000 a year for our retirees. So how do we get where we are today? Well, I think most of you know that the city makes contributions and employees make contributions to help fund the plan. But the real driver for the plan is investment earnings. And in fact, more than 50% of the funding for the plan comes from those investment earnings. However, over the course of history, and you see the dot-com bubble and stock market crashes, the Great Recession, investment returns were low or very negative. And as a result, we had a growing unfunded liability. And what that meant was that the city and the employees, well, in that case, at that time, the city had to put in a lot more money. And so the mayor and council seized the reins in around 2012, and in 2013, you all referred to the voters some reforms, and then you made some spiking reforms on your own to try to address the issue of the growing unfunded liability and ways to limit the growth in what the city had to pay. So when the voters approved those and when these were implemented, we began to see changes. One other thing that happened is shortly after the voters approved the reform, there were new guidelines coming out from the Governmental Accounting Standards Bureau, and the city also hired a new actuary. And we needed to make some changes to the assumptions of the plan that will also help to address this challenge. And so the combination of the reforms and the assumptions changes result in the curve you see up on the chart, which is that our unfunded liability will be paid down to zero by the year 2038. We have a very responsible financial plan to pay down the unfunded liability because of the reforms you made and because of the assumptions changes that were made by the board that governs COPERS. Now, one problem that has emerged as a result of the assumptions changes and the combined with the reform is that the rate that employees have to pay has gone up quicker and higher than we ever expected. And I think each one of you have expressed concern over time, publicly and privately, about the rate that our employees have to pay. And the committee was very concerned about that issue. So Sam's going to talk you through what the committee's recommended. Let me just say one thing. They looked at a whole bunch of different ideas. Going to a DC plan. Could we put all our new employees in the Arizona state retirement system and close our system? Could we look at a cash balance plan? And ultimately, they settled on a version of we looked at a bunch of different hybrid plans, and ultimately they settled on recommending a hybrid plan. So Sam's going to explain the recommendation of the committee.
Mayor? Oh. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tier 1 versus Tier 2. I know a lot of you are familiar with it, but for the viewing members at home. So Tier 1 employees are employees hired before July 1st, 2013, so before pension reform went into effect. They're considered Tier 1. Tier 2 employees were hired after pension reform went into effect. There's approximately 500 employees right now. And for Tier 1, there's a 5% employee contribution rate, and the city pays the remainder of the required contribution. For Tier 2, there's a 50-50 split in the required contribution rate. So if the total rate is 20%, the city would make a 10% contribution, and the employee would make also a 10% contribution. As Rick mentioned, Tier 2 employee rates have increased higher and quicker than expected. So currently, or as of July 1st of this year, the Tier 2 contribution rate will be 15.51%. So we showed this information to the committee. The co-chairs will recognize some of these numbers. We compared two real employees recently started as solid waste equipment operators. These are the solid waste truck drivers. And their starting annual salary is $34,600. So their annual net, though, is there's a big difference. It's about $2,700 less for a Tier 2 employee because of that high contribution rate of 15.51%. So and it works out to about $110 per paycheck. The Tier 2 rate of 15.51% in July is higher than any system in the United States that also contributes to Social Security. ASRS, the state system that covers most other cities and towns in Arizona, they're at a little bit over 11%, and they're trending down. And most other pension systems in the United States are between 3 and 8%. So Tier 2 is paying almost 22% of their pay to retirement, either through COPERS or through Social Security. And their take-home is 13% less annually compared to Tier 1. So it's really having a significant impact, it appears, on recruitment and retention efforts. And that high contribution rate was obviously became a focus of the committee.
So the framework for reform that the committee used, and it's similar to reforms we've looked at elsewhere. One thing we wanted to focus on is how does the current system affect recruitment and retention? And as we mentioned, with those high contribution rates, we've been seeing some negative impacts on recruitment and retention, so we wanted to try to address it. Obviously, the committee wanted to do everything possible to continue to save money for the city in the system. And they wanted to implement best practices. They wanted to see what's out there across the nation that is happening and that is working. And then finally, it was important to avoid litigation. Not that we're afraid of litigation, but it's not good to have expensive litigation that you know you're probably going to lose. And so they were very focused on making sure they didn't recommend something that would end you up in court and losing. So as I mentioned, they looked at a bunch of different options, but ultimately landed on something called a stacked hybrid, and Sam's going to walk you through how that works.
So the proposed stacked hybrid plan is what the committee recommended for Tier 3 employees, for new employees hired after the implementation date. It's called a stacked hybrid because there's a traditional pension plan with traditional defined benefits up to $125,000 of compensation. And then stacked on top is a 401k style plan that with a small contribution from the city. So for new hires after the future implementation date, there would not be a defined benefit pension for income above $125,000, but above that cap there would be, under this proposal, a small contribution from the city to a 401k style plan. So the committee wanted to ensure that their recommendation would avoid costly litigation, as Rick mentioned, and making changes to a current employee's retirement benefits is likely to result in expensive litigation. So with that in mind, the committee recommended the following for employees, both the current employees in Tier 1 and Tier 2 and future employees. So for Tier 1, there are no proposed changes to retirement benefits, and there's still a 5% employee contribution rate. For Tier 2 employees, there's no change to retirement benefits, but there would be an 11% ceiling on the employee contribution rate. 11% was decided by the committee because it's more in line with the state retirement system, ASRS, and it would also help recruitment and retention efforts by lowering from the expected 15.5% or higher in the future. So, and for Tier 3, this would be new employees hired after the implementation date in the future. There's still that 11% ceiling on the employee contribution rate. However, in order to have that 11% contribution and still create savings, as was one of the other points in the framework, there must be a reduction in benefits for future employees in Tier 3, because that's the only group that we can legally impact with retirement benefit changes. So for Tier 3, only future hires, there would be changes to retirement benefits. And there is one other change that would impact any employee, Tier 1 through Tier 3. For any employee who leaves the city, does not retire from the city, and they withdraw their contributions from the retirement system, they would get a maximum interest credit of 3.75%. So that would apply to all levels of employees, but it's employees who do not retire from the city. They leave and withdraw their contributions. So,
Councilman Williams.
If I recall, we talked about currently the Oversight Committee on the pension sets the rate, and I think, Rick, you and I talked about this yesterday. That made it sound like it was definitely that, but they still have the ability to set the rate. That's just the cap. Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilwoman Williams, that is correct. Currently, the charter says that the COPERS board shall set the rate, and currently the rate is set at the earnings assumption or an average of inflation over a period of years, whichever is lower. This would cap it at 3.75%, but the board would still have the authority to set it lower should the CPI dictate that.
Continue, please.
Yep, thank you. So Now I want to show you the benefit changes. These are for Tier 3 only, except that final change. So as mentioned, this would be a stacked hybrid plan, so there would be a $125,000 cap on pensionable compensation indexed to inflation. There would also be a change to how cost of living adjustments, or COLAs, are funded during retirement. For Tier 3 employees, at retirement, they would choose to accept a lower starting benefit in order to have future cost of living adjustments. This proposal would also change the benefit multiplier to a maximum of 2.1%, depending on years of service, compared to what is now 2.3% maximum for Tier 2. This proposal would also eliminate the sick leave service credit. It would also change the way final average salary is calculated from a 3-year average to a 5-year average. And finally, there's a provision now that allows for new hires previously a part of the ASRS retirement system, the state system, to join the city as a Tier 1 employee. So that exists right now. This would eliminate that provision, and all new hires would go in as Tier 3 after the implementation date. And finally, the last change would be for all tiers, and it's the 3.75% maximum interest credit that Rick and Councilwoman Williams talked about. So all told, these savings would be expected to save the city $303.7 million over 20 years. The next big change is that 11% ceiling on the Tier 2 and Tier 3 employee contribution rates. That is an added cost. That would create additional costs of $261.7 million over 20 years. And finally, there's one small cost, additional cost of the 2% contribution to a 401k style plan over the compensation cap for compensation above the cap, and that'll create additional costs of $3.2 million over 20 years. So with all of these changes, these recommendations are expected to save $38.8 million over 20 years, and this is on top of the $830 million that Rick and Mayor and Council mentioned.
So how does this stack up as you look at the criteria that they talked about? Well, by reducing the contribution rate, putting a ceiling on the contribution rate for current Tier 2 and future employees, it helps with recruitment and retention. Does it save money? It saves $38 million projected over the next 20 years. Does it implement best practices? Well, a lot of the changes to the benefit structure are changes that will put us more in line with what some other cities and states across the nation are beginning to move to. The stacked hybrid is a little bit on the innovative side. There aren't, I don't know if we found anybody who has this structure in this way, but it sort of is a cutting edge practice that people are very interested in. And then finally, avoiding litigation. By focusing the benefit reductions on new employees, we avoid litigation. So today what we're asking is that you direct us to prepare the ad hoc committee's recommendations for referral to the August 2015 election or any amendments thereto. I would like to ask if the committee member, Mr. Gurrias, if you wanted to add anything from a committee member's perspective before I turn it back to you, Mayor.
I didn't really come to make any comments. I was just here to answer any questions that you may have, but since you had asked, I just wanted to compliment our co-chairs, Councilwoman Williams and Councilman Valenzuela for chairing this stuff, and also the staff that helped with our committee work. I mean, they were absolutely phenomenal. Everything that we asked, and it was pretty bizarre, some of the things that we were asking. I mean, they were really atypical types of things to be discussing about pension benefits and wages and benefits and whatnot, but I just wanted to compliment them and thank them for all the fine job that they did.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gurrias, for your active participation in the committee and those kind words. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to take cards from the public, and then I'll turn to one of our co-chairs for a appropriate motion. Let's see, we have, let's see, Ms. Rogers, you provide testimony on this item, followed by, Ms. Wozniak, you're donating time, is that correct? No, I donated. I got it, okay, perfect. Okay, so you'll, I see, okay, I apologize. So, Ms. Rogers, followed by Mr. Clark, followed by Mr. Vint.
Mayor and council and attendees, I have a little better understanding of this since the video presentation, but I'm concerned because we've been addressing this now 3 consecutive years. And I'm not sure today we're any closer to home plate on the subject for the employees than we were last year. I hope we are. I've just made some notes that are of concern. And it's basically, my concern is that the first group of people who are most affected by this are our employees. And without them, none of us would be here because you'd be talking to yourselves. They are the most valuable asset the city of Phoenix has. And they are of the highest quality overall of any large corporation and/or government group of employees I've ever had the opportunity to have personal contact with. And I'm not a soft target judge. Right now, because of the changes that have taken place since the original plan was agreed upon, which was in, I believe, July of 12, effective. A Tier 2 employee right now, his take-home pay is $8.05 an hour. That's not a livable wage. And the reason you're having such attrition is because you're not paying a livable wage to beginners. And you can't live with just experienced people. You've got to always have beginners. I hope this will correct that so that we don't have the revolving door of relatively new employees.
Thank you very much.
That is a stain upon the city of Phoenix, and you can't have an effective operating government, cost-effective and morale effective, if that's what's going on.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers, very much. Appreciate your testimony. Next speaker will be Leonard Clark, followed by Pat Vent, then Ms. Wozniak. I apologize. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. My name is Leonard Clark. I'm a resident of Phoenix. And first of all, I'd like to say I strongly support this measure. And I would really, really like to thank the hardworking people of the city of Phoenix, the workers, the police officer I saw last summer out in the heat changing a tire for an elderly lady, the people I see on a 40-degree morning fixing a broken sewer main. I know there's a lot of animosity out there towards some people who work in the government, but we are very fortunate to have such high-quality workers in the city of Phoenix. So, you know, there's always going to be a few bad apples. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. And I really like this plan because it caps employee contributions. These new workers coming in are already paying a significant amount to Social Security and these other items, and this you probably can't vote on, but you know, if we had a national health care plan like Germany and other countries, so our workers, when they retire, didn't have to pay these exorbitant prices to these insurance companies, then maybe we wouldn't have to have as much for the retirement. So anyways, I strongly support this. Thank you very much, and thanks again to the hardworking people of the city of Phoenix, the workers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Mr. Vent?
I'd like to have ladies go first, please.
Well, Mr. Vent, Ms. Wozniak is representing Lyon, and I was going in a particular order, so your gesture is appreciated, but I would like you to go first.
Now you're saying that I can't let ladies go first. You're going to be that bad?
Mr. Vent, I'm going to ask you, now's your time to speak. If you're going to give up your time, I'm going to move on to other people, but I will not come back to you. Mr. Vent, please.
You know, you're going to love to hear this. Why did it take this damn long to do something right? We've got to go back and find the persons, the people that created this disaster. Now, you won't let me mention their names, but they're the 2 past city managers. Everybody knows who they are, or they better know, or if they don't know, they ought to be arrested. They should be charged with fraud to 1,600,000 citizens in the city of Phoenix. But you're finally going to do the right thing. And now you're worried that you're not going to get employees. You're not going to need employees anyway when the Muslims move in. And now I suppose I can't say Muslims. If you've been listening to the in the news, they're going to cut your head off, put it on a stick, and beat the hell out of your body with it. Those people are nasty. And I can't say president, whatever,
Mayor,
I guess,
this is not
but
appropriate.
he's in.
Well, I try to give him as much leeway as possible. Obviously, it's discussing comments, but the First Amendment is a wonderful thing in the United States of America. So, Mr. Venter, you almost finished up. You have to keep it on your comments on the actual item, which is, of course,
Okay.
the proposed pension reform.
Now, you just took up 3 minutes of my time, so now I get 3 minutes of time. You gentlemen over
Mr.
there.
Venter, you
that
have 4
look like-
seconds left.
I might as well have said anything because you're not going to listen.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vent. Ms. Wozniak will be the next speaker, and someone has donated time to her, Mr. Higgins, so you have up to 4 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Vent. Ms. Wozniak.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. I'm not here very often. That's why I have time donated. I have a lot to say, maybe not so much. I wanted to start with this. I am torn on this proposal. We need immediate relief for the Tier 2 employees that we represent. I represent the folks that pick up the garbage. They repair, clean the city streets and the city parks, which are gorgeous, by the way, if you have time to go to any of those places. They're incredible people, but people that don't stay more than one pay period at this point. We have had folks that have left orientation. Why? Because the groundskeepers we represent make $13.10 an hour. Take 11% of a Tier 2 donation out of that, and you're making a little over $11 an hour, if my math is correct. I couldn't live on that today. I don't know how they live on that today, and they've had to leave. So I agree with Ms. Rogers. There are excellent employees within this city, in this room as well, but they need a livable wage. They absolutely need a livable wage. They need immediate relief. But I hate to visit the pension one more time. I feel as this every year we talk about the pension in this city, every single year. What is a pension? A pension is something that people work for 20 years, for 25 years, for 30 years, and sometimes they make a lot of money. Sometimes they make only $30,000 when they retire. But they have something when they leave, a sustainable way to live, to support themselves so that they don't, as my boss often says, eat cat food when they retire. That's a good thing. With this proposed change, it caps to 11%, which is fantastic. It's not the 15%. It's not 20%. It's not if an actuarial study comes out and says 50%. They're not suddenly paying 50% of their salary. They're able to plan. They're able to feed their children, to own a house. $11 an hour, you cannot own a house within the city of Phoenix, and it is one of the greatest cities in the country. We would like everyone to stay here and to thrive here, as Plan Phoenix discussed earlier. But to do that, we begrudgingly agree that this is a good proposal. We wish that it wasn't coming up again, but we understand we need immediate relief, or we're afraid in the long term, as some conspiracy theorists may say, that contracting out may surface again. Why? Because no one wants to work here if they can't sustain themselves and their families. That's critical to having a job, and people wait years to get a job with the city. They're so excited. If you guys could see them at NEO and orientation, they're like, oh my goodness, I have been hired with the city. I have a full-time job. I have an actual career. I have a paycheck. I have a pension. I have health benefits. I mean, they're really excited, you guys, if you could see them. It is fantastic to see the joy that they have when they're hired. And then when they can't stay because they can't afford it because of the amount they're paying in their pension and the unknown amount in the future, it just frightens us. It's scary, and it's not fair to two-tier employees or this new Tier 3 employees. So we hope that you will vote to approve this measure. Thank you for your time. Did I run out?
Thank you very much for taking time for your testimony, and please invite us to one of those orientations. Sounds like
we'll do that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Mr. Musey, Scott Musey is next. He's indicated he's opposed to the proposal. Mr. Musey.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, for the record, my name is Scott Musey. Here, speaking in opposition to the proposal, obviously still trying to understand some of the details involved with it and understand some of the assumptions made behind it. I will say that some of the measures and some of the things being considered are things that are items that I think can be generally supported as considered good pension reform related to finally evaluating and looking at defined contribution plans, looking at what to do with the existing pension plan and making changes with that. But overall, in looking at the package, that without serious modifications to the package, it falls short mainly on the two aspects of what good pension reform needs. One on the cost, not just related to the employees, but on the taxpayer specifically, and then also dealing with risk. I'll touch on the cost aspect first. One of the issues related to the pension reform of the city of Phoenix is that costs for taxpayers have went way up. 10 years ago, the cost for the city of Phoenix to provide benefits was around 10% of pay. It's now well in excess of 20% of pay, and under this proposal would still stay above 20% of pay on average for the next 20 years. And the idea that Tier 1 employees are paying 5%, Tier 2 are paying 11%, and yet taxpayers will remain at 20%, this does nothing to bend the cost curve down for taxpayers. Secondly, dealing with the risk aspect on this, and addressing risk is that one of the issues related to pension reform and the need for pension reform is how to appropriate the risk to make sure that taxpayers aren't taking it all on. It was mentioned by staff that they're promising and is mentioning guaranteeing savings. They guaranteed $800 million in savings before. Now they're saying there's going to be another $40 million of savings. And then the same breath mentioned that it was a completely unintended consequences that Tier 2 costs skyrocketed. It's hard to say that you know for certain that those costs will be guaranteed in savings, yet be unsure related to the related to whether or not there'll be other unintended consequences. The reality is the confidence on whether or not we're going to be hitting these cost savings or any cost savings is closer to zero than it is 100%. Just one last example on that. Right now, they're projecting projecting for the returns needed to hit the savings a 7.5% return. If you miss that by 0.25%, that's a $100 million shift back onto the taxpayers that they have to make up. And if I can indulge you, I have one last point I wanted to make related to the defined contribution component. In the proposal, it's proposing a 2% defined contribution above $125,000. Right now, the city of Phoenix does provide a deferred comp 401A plan for the employees. It's unclear how that'll function in the confines of this proposal. Will the new employees come in, get the deferred comp and this on top of that? Will existing employees continue to get that? Is this cap going to be put in the charter? I think a lot can be done related to that aspect of this and how that's going to function, because there might be a lot of inequities and unfairness in the system. And if you really want to get true savings in this, looking at where the pensionable K-cap and what the DC plan looks like would actually go a lot further in adding savings to the plan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beasley, for
you.
taking the time to be here. We appreciate it very much. Mr. McCain, Barry McCain is next, followed by Jason Stokes.
Thank you, Mayor Stanton and City Councils. I'd like to begin by saying thank you, congratulations for Daniel Valenzuela for being the Vice Mayor. I'm very happy about that. But I'd like to also thank the City Council for having the ad hoc committee for 3 months. That means you took it serious. That's wonderful. Sometimes I don't think we feel like we're taken seriously. So I know you've done that, and I appreciate it by putting all the work in. But you know, yes, we're strapped for cash. That's true, but that's not the most important part about it, because the truth be told, we're hurting for money because there was mismanagement of the money. It's not the pensions. You know, the people talk about, well, they want to save $38 million, and that's fine and dandy. But the important thing to remember is when money becomes our main goal, you'll see a dollar bill walk across this room. Until then, it's always about how we treat our people. And there's just no other way of getting around it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCain. Mr. Jason Stokes, followed by Marshall Pimentel.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of City Council, first of all, I would like to thank the members of the ad hoc subcommittee for their work on this. My name is Jason Stokes. I'm a resident of District 2, a native of Phoenix, and president of ASPETIA, representing our professional employees. I guess what Jennifer said earlier, I would echo. This is a compromise. This is a compromise to help our employees and to help the city of Phoenix. With the escalating contribution rate, while it is affecting those at the lower end of the pay scale, it's affecting everywhere in that spectrum because we cannot recruit or retain people that have marketable skills. And this is ultimately going to hurt the city without fixing this. As the subcommittee recommended, I can support their recommendations based upon, I see a plan that is good for the city, it's good for the taxpayers, and it's good for the employees. It provides relief to them, to our employees. It provides further savings to the budget and to the taxpayers, and allows us to retain our ability to be competitive in the market. This, I think, has a little something for everybody. It's not perfect. It is a compromise. This has a 5-year final average salary. This has the elimination of the sick leave service credit. And while it doesn't get mentioned quite a bit, the real poster children for the pension reform have been our previous city managers. The stacked hybrid puts a stop to that for good. We won't have people drawing pensions larger than their salaries with the stacked hybrid. So I would strongly recommend the council to vote in favor of the pure form of what this committee of our citizens who spent a lot of time to come up with their recommendation, the pure form that they recommended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pimentel, followed by Anthony Ruelas.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, staff. Here we are again to discuss how city employees can save the city money. Again, since the first discussions to now, your employees have stepped up. They're doing more with less, for less. These ad hoc committees have worked to end spiking, double dipping, and other games from pensions that were approved by council and passed by voters. However, it is important to keep in mind that while the isolated stories of the $125,000 per year pensioners and those made headlines, annuities that size are earned by less than 1 or 2% of all pensioners. This recommendation from the ad hoc committee, this hybrid system will cap pensioners who make above that rate. But more importantly, it will cap the contributions rate to 11%, which will keep some working families from living in poverty and still save the taxpayers another $38.8 million. We support this recommendation. And again, thank you to all employees who have sacrificed for the city in which they work and live. And just in closing, can we please let the new employees know what they're coming in at? We just had new employees and they don't know exactly what's going on when they get that phone call to come to this and work for the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pimentel, for your testimony and your leadership. Anthony Ruelas is next, followed by Mr. Louis Schmidt.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. My name is Anthony. I'm a City of Phoenix resident, taxpayer, employee. I've seen it firsthand, the effects of what's going on in Tier 2 currently. Like it said before, we've had new employees who aren't aware of what they're coming into. A day prior to, they get that phone call, they show up, get informed at new employee orientation, don't complete it. Or if they're lucky enough to wait a couple weeks to get their first paycheck, see their check, don't even bother coming back. If they stay longer, it's becoming a habit of where the employees use the city to get any credentials they need, certifications, CDLs, and use that because the city, offered it to them. They took it and found jobs elsewhere. I'm not sure the cost of the background checks and everything to get these new hires in, but in the long run, I'm pretty sure that's a waste of money we don't have. Also, we can't keep expecting new employees to make up for bad decisions that were put on us from decisions made in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Mr. Louis Schmidt is next. And you've got donated time from a couple individuals, so you have up to 6 minutes. but you don't have to take all the time if you don't want. President Schmidt, good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Louis Schmidt, the president of ASME Local 2384. And what got us here today was, I think Mr. Vint referenced it, Mr. Cavazos, a couple of people at the top, they took advantage of a system that allowed them to do that. But again, what happened is we saw some of our own council members and some of the media paint everybody with one broad brush that we were all pension abusers. But as you can look back, you won't see that it's the people picking up the trash, people who maintain this facility. It wasn't the rank and file employees who were abusing the system. But the council took direction in 20. See, I got Mr. Waring to smile. Back on? Hello? All right. So anyways, the pension reform in 2012 that the committee did, the voters approved it in spring of 2013, and it went into effect. And that pension reform addressed a lot of the concerns immediate to the members, to the council and to the mayor, and the citizens voted on it. Again, there was other consequences that were unintended that are having an effect on the people who serve this community, the people who live in the community, and who work for the city of Phoenix. And some of those unintended consequences are what Jennifer from Liuna stated. You know, you have employees who are walking out of orientation because they can't afford to work here. When you're paying for your Social Security and then also paying an additional, 15% for your pension, that is very costly. We had over 50 employees at the new employee orientation today, and today was the day that most of them found out what their pension costs are. Most of them hadn't even been told that. But I told them, I said, you know what? We have a city council that is nonpartisan, supposed to be nonpartisan, and I'm going to go and speak on your behalf today so that they can understand, so they can hear the stories. I know Councilman Valenzuela in the committee referenced some of the stories that you've been told, but these are real stories, real people in this community. All of you have city employees who live in your districts. Somewhere.
Thank you, but sorry about that, please.
It's not his fault, but that's what happens when you outsource, no. No, but anyways, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the time. But, so this is a serious topic. I'm not trying to make light of this. This is a serious topic. And as the paper reported, we were upset when this committee got put together. We were upset with the mayor, and we were because the citizens just spoke last fall, overwhelmingly. They defeated the dark money plan that Scott Meese and the Free Enterprise Club and some of the members on the council were supportive of. The citizens spoke loudly and said, no, we want our employees to be protected. We want them to have retirement security. And so we were upset because we wanted to be on this committee. And the mayor took the right approach by saying, well, we're going to try to keep it neutral. And I may not like that. I may not like the mayor's decision, but I respect the decision that was made. So now the committee's made some recommendations, and we see that they're recommending to, again, cut more. I think Mr. Musi says he didn't like this plan, so I believe he means that he doesn't like what's just cutting more from employees. So if that's what he meant, that's a good thing. But I don't believe that's what he meant. At the end of the day, we've seen that the defined benefit system, the defined benefit plan is what is sustainable for municipalities. Many on the city council, probably after I speak later on, and you guys were going to speak up about how pension costs. Many of you have made comments recently in the last few days. Pension reform has been addressed with your leadership and with the vote of the citizens. And now with this additional reform, we're saving over $900 million for the taxpayers that go to balance the budget and go to, and what else is balancing, what else is also balancing this budget is the sacrifices from these employees. All the concessions that they've taken for 5 going on 6 straight years, their concessions help this community. Their concessions help your constituents. This isn't about the union versus the city council. This is about the community that thrives. If you want to have a Phoenix plan that is sustainable and that is embracive of the community, it must have some type of retirement security. These employees are not here to get rich. They're here to serve their community. But when you have employees who are choosing not to insure their family because they're choosing whether they have to pay for their pension or insure their family, why should we make that choice working for the 6th largest city of the nation? Earlier, I heard Councilman DeCiccio say, try to get some for the education, that he supports education. Well, you know what? Then our governor should be supporting the education. If we want to do tax reform and pension reform, because one of the topics that many of you guys have talked about this week that you given comments to the Arizona Republic is that we have to keep the pension costs under control. Well, our firefighters and our police officers have taken a positive step in the right direction. And we need your support to have the state legislature allow them. I know, Mr. Gates, Councilman Gates, you were on Ducey's Transition Committee. You've seen this plan. You've seen this, and you've seen that this is in the right direction. So now today, all of you have the choice. All of you have the authority to move this plan in the right direction. So this plan does save, $38.8 million. This plan can go, it may not end domestic violence, completely, but this plan gives the city actual money that can be used for our community's benefit. The public safety pension system, don't use that paintbrush to paint the civilian employees. They're trying to do the right thing. They're showing that they're trying to do the right thing. We've stepped up. We've made sacrifices. I don't like this plan. I don't. But you know what? It brings immediate relief to some of the employees. We have one of the new employees here, Mr. Perkins, he was at no employee orientation today. He's here. He came. He didn't know what the cost for the pensions were going to be. He came here to serve. Did we look for a job saying, I want to go here and make money and be rich? No. We came for the opportunity to serve our community, to try to make some type of retirement security for our families. And part of our displeasure with the mayor on this committee is because there was changes going to be made to the employees that we represent. We wanted to be part of the discussion. It would be like the ethics policy that you guys have. It was if imagine us in the audience making the policy for you guys. You guys wouldn't like that. So that's why we had displeasure, because we thought we had a lot to offer. But in closing, I want to thank everybody on the committee, the city staff, and Councilman Valenzuela and Councilwoman Williams for all your support on this recommendation, all the hard work you did. You guys allowed the public to comment, and we did, and there was a lot of positive feedback. But thank you, Mr. Garais, for your input on this. And at the end of the day, I don't like this plan, but at the end of the day, it saves the working families of the city of Phoenix. It saves them, and it gives them something. Now we can have a couple of them afford the city's insurance. So again, we're here to serve. We're not greedy employees. And if you truly all care about public safety, and you know that this saves money, then you will make this, this should be a unanimous decision, just as the decision to appoint Councilman Valenzuela as the next vice mayor. Again, thank you for your time, Mayor. Thank you, everybody on the City Council, and let's make the right decision today.
Thank you very much, President Louis Schmidt. The final card that I have is Frank Pacholi. Final card to speak. I apologize. Mr. President Pacholi, good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good to see you, too. I really didn't want to come up and speak today. I had no plans to, so I'm not going to be, so eloquent.
You're normally so shy.
I know. This is very difficult for me. But the thing that changed my mind was I was with New Employee Orientation, and to see people walk out of New Employee Orientation after going through the testing, after competing against, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, at the exact moment they walk out is when they realize what their pension costs are. And we had a public works employee, Angie and myself went, and she begged me. She said, I came here leaving a job at $12 an hour. She goes, and I'm making less now. Now, my job was supposed to be about $13.25 because of all the cuts. And you're talking 11%, you're talking 15% it's going up to, you're talking 17% they're predicted to go up to in a year. That with Social Security, you're talking a quarter of their pay. She said, please, Frank, I can't afford food on my table. And we said, hey, you have a pension, you have these other great benefits. She goes, it's great. I love having a pension. It's important to me. She goes, I love having the benefits, but I need to put food on my table. And 25 cents out of every dollar coming out of my pay, I can't do it. City of Phoenix employees make 19% less than the public sector, and now 25% of that is coming out for retirement. So is this a wonderful plan? No. More pension cuts, getting rid of all these things, changing 3 to 5 years. These are not great ideas, but it's doable, and it puts food on the table for these people that cannot afford it. It also tends to eliminate the higher-end abuses we've always had. Anything in the paper we've seen, it's always these people with pensions making $200,000, $250,000. That will no longer be in the paper because it eliminates that. The retention of employees is important. Putting food on their table is important. You have deputy directors who on a list of 10, the first 8 say no because they can't afford to work here. This needs to pass. It needs to pass to be able to save the employees. They've been hurt for too long by this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pacholi. In favor but not wishing to speak, Steve Berlines of United Phoenix Firefighters, Local 493. Tim Hill with Professional Firefighters Arizona. Justin Perkins also is in favor. And anyone else in the audience wish to provide testimony on item number 51 on today's agenda, the proposed pension reform? All right, with that, Councilman Valenzuela, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Mayor, you know, I'll just put the motion on the table. I will make a motion for staff recommendations from the Civilian Retirement Security Ad Hoc.
The motion is to support the committee recommendations?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any comments you'd like to make on that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start with comments. I think many of the comments that were stated here are the reason this is an important thing. This does not wipe a clean slate of the hard work that's already been done. Let's think about the pension reform measure that was passed by a high majority of the voters in March 2013, 2 years ago actually, and other measures that were taken by this very council just shortly thereafter, which will produce a savings of about $830 million over 25 years. This actually will save nearly $40 million. In addition to that, this will also bring some much needed relief to our employees. You know, look, I mentioned this on the very first ad hoc meeting. I spoke to a young lady who is a new City of Phoenix employee, a mother of 2, three, single mother of 3, and she was so grateful and thankful to work for an awesome organization like the City of Phoenix. And so she was telling me about this, you know, she's really excited. She came in at roughly $15 an hour, $14 or $15 an hour. And when it was, you know, payday, what she netted was less than $700. And you know, she was in tears, and she was saying, "Yeah, what am I going to do? Can you tell me about what this pension reform thing is? What happened?" And she goes on, and I explained the 50-50. I explained the things that were done a couple of years ago, and now, you know, now we're talking for now this young lady who is in Tier 2 and others that are in Tier 2, their rates will be we're expected to see rates at 15.51%, and that's doing the 50-50, you know, and so something has to be done. We have to bring some relief to our employees. We have to continue to be in a position of strength where we are, you know, thinking of solvency, which I think this does, but also we have to continue to be that very attractive employer. That's how we are going to continue to provide the best possible service. Some will say that, you know, this whole pension system is broken. What I would tell those that would say that is do some research. Again, these measures that were taken, We're going to be saving roughly $800 with this, about $870 million roughly over the course of 25 years. I mentioned this before. Last year's $38 million deficit would have been $5 million deeper had we not made these changes here. Those savings will continue moving forward. This is an important thing for us to do, and so I do support this recommendation. I do want to thank my colleague, Councilwoman Thelda Williams, who co-chaired this effort, and I especially would like to thank the volunteers that were there with us, beginning with Pete Garias and, of course, Sue, Rick, Suzanne, and Dave. I just, for 2 hours at a time, roughly 2 hours at a time in these meetings, I got to tell you, we started with, this history lesson of what brought us here. And there were a couple times in those meetings that we're thinking, how in the world, what more can we possibly do? And that was so valuable, I think. And those meetings were open, by the way. They were public meetings that were posted. But, anyone who came in attendance and to see all that the city has already done, what more can we possibly do? And I think we found a good balance. You've heard our labor leaders say that this is not the ideal situation, but even our labor leaders understand that this is what it takes to help move our city forward to become that city of the future. And that said, I stand by my motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Valenzuela, for your leadership on this ad hoc committee. I know you took a lot of time to do so. Councilman Williams, co-chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important to stress that this is a very hard-working committee, and we looked at many, many options, and they brought a perspective from the business community. We had people on there that were knowledgeable about the City of Phoenix pensions, but we also had representative from the Chamber of Commerce. We had Suzanne Feister, Sue. Glow was on there from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and so they had a different perspective, and they learned about our system. And I think what's important here is the fact that from the very beginning, we looked at what was fair for the taxpayers, but fair for the employees. We wanted to make sure that Tier 2 employees we could recognize how unfair their contribution rate was. It was totally unintentional when we asked the voters to pass what we did, never realizing that the cost could go up that high. But we had to also recognize, as the union reps have talked about, people are walking out of orientation, or they wait till they get their first paycheck and say adios. They're gone. They simply can't afford to be here. And I think for the first time, I've lived here over 40 years, I always have been in and around different governments, different levels of governments. City of Phoenix was the top tier. This is where you wanted to be. You didn't want to work at the county, and you didn't want to work at the state. If you wanted to work for government, this is the place, and everybody aspired to it. For the first time, we were no longer competitive. We were not competitive with the state or with the county. And I personally could stand the thought of us not being on the top, and because we've always had the best. We've always attracted the brightest. We've always been the leaders, not only in this community, in this valley, but in the nation. And we have a reputation. And I just thought it was extremely important that we sit down and review pension and come up with some ideas on how to make this really, truly work for the long term. We were on the path for some other revisions, but the hiccups occurred that were so serious that I thought we have to understand. And we looked at every type of option you can possibly think of. I mean, we went from A to Z on these, had in-depth discussions, pros and cons on every one of them. And yes, I recognize it is not saving hundreds of millions of dollars right off the bat. In fact, it'll cost us some, which yet I'll have a question on how we're going to do that. But in the long run, it gets us out of debt with the pensions. It gets us where we need to go, and it's still fair for the employees. And I think that is what the important point here is. We didn't get in this mess overnight. We're not going to get out of this mess overnight. But it just like Plan Phoenix, we have a legitimate plan to go forward that solves the problem, that has had a lot of input and will put us in the right direction. So I guess my question to you, Ed, right off the bat, is before we make the recommendation, I want to make sure the recommendation included referral to the ballot. And I think it did, didn't it? Yeah, okay. How do you propose that? I think for the first 2 years, it costs us some money, if I recall.
Just to clarify, Mayor, members of the council, the recommendation today means that we will come back on the March 18th formal agenda with the referral to the ballot.
Form of the ballot.
And then the form of the ballot will be in April. It will be aligned with your actions on Plan Phoenix for March and for April.
Okay.
Your second question about the upfront initial costs, Mr. Neymark, Mr. Paniagua, and I have been looking at the actuarial report about how the costs lay out, and there is a small, relatively small cost in the second year of it, and we believe we can accommodate that within the projected increase in our contingency fund for that year. So based on that plan, we believe that we can take care of that within the current fiscal planning we've done for the 5-year forecast.
Good, because I think that, too, was part of the topic of our discussion. I also want to thank Sam. He was not only our leader, our investigator, but our teacher. He did the in-depth research and could work with all of us and help us get through the mire of some of these plans that were on the table for us to inspect, and I think that's extremely important. So I urge the fellow council members to look at this as a real solution and to support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Williams, for your leadership on the ad hoc committee. Vice Mayor, I know you had some questions.
I did. So are you assuming a 7.5% return, Rick, or?
Mayor, members of the council, under the adjusted assumptions of the COPERS board, the current plan assumes 7.5% average annual return. The history of the plan since inception is well over 8%. And the assumptions of the actuary were the same assumption, doing this modeling, were the same assumptions that are in the plan.
So I assume you know if it's actually 7 or 6.5, how expensive is that?
I don't have the details of a particular number. If the assumptions, remember this is...
How about a drop of like half a point, or what's a point worth?
I can't answer that for you today.
All right, so, I mean, I guess I have some concerns, then about that. The $125,000 figure, so from what I've read, that's top 10% of wage earners in the United States. So bigger markets than this, more expensive. Not against anybody making that. How did you arrive at that number? Why that number?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Waring, the committee looked at several different numbers. They looked at, we modeled $75,000, $100,000, and $125,000. California has recently made some reforms and gone to something right in that same realm. I think it's just slightly lower than 125. The number is inclusive of all compensation that is counted for pensions, so not just salary. And so that's something to consider. But the committee...
Does it include, so it's the benefits, which are what, like 38 cents on the dollar?
Anything that's included currently in the definition of compensation. So we include like overtime as an example. If you have a linguistic pay, extra pays that are part of your salary, those kinds of things.
So do you know right now how many people we've got who are hitting the $125,000 threshold? I mean, we got, what, 14,500 employees. It's really to, I think it was Marshall Pimentel's point. I think it was his. How many people are we talking about?
I don't know exactly, Vice Mayor, but it's not a vast majority of employees.
No, I can't imagine
right.
It is.
Right. And by the way, I should also mention that somebody like Sam today isn't there, but at some point in his career, he might get promoted to a point of being at that place, and at that moment, We hope, Councilwoman Williams really liked his presentations.
Well, Councilman Williams told me he is a warrior poet in the classic sense, so I will not be surprised if he doesn't agree. I will be surprised if he doesn't reach such.
So
such
people it doesn't
levels.
apply to at the moment, ultimately at some point in their career, they may hit that threshold and it would kick in for that amount of income that is above.
He's like the little acorn that
above
becomes
the
the
level.
oak. I think that's terrific. All right, but enough about Sam. Let's talk about this for a second. So the contribution level of 2005, what was it?
The contribution.
10 years ago, what?
I think we have
the
that.
city's-
Hang on just a
city's
moment. Let
portion.
me see if I can find it. The city's.
I mean, if you have a different number, 15 years ago, I assumed you might have 10, so.
You passed it, didn't you?
Are you asking about the dollar amount?
Let me
or
get
the
back to you on that
percentage?
in a moment, and if you have other questions, I'll try to answer those.
Well, I'm curious long-term. I guess going back to the $125,000 figure, I mean, you said you had the numbers. Do you have them in front of you you said you modeled, I forget, I assume it was 175. Do you have those? I mean, what do we get for going lower?
Well, Mayor, Councilman Waring, when we did the models for those, we were looking at different ceilings for the contribution rate and some different elements of benefit cuts. So we don't have an apples-to-apples model for everything that's in this model, but just changing the line to 100,000 or 75,000. We did do some different models that had those, but they were different. They were different packages, so they're not really a good apples-to-apples comparison.
Can you do an apples-to-apples comparison without hiring more consultants and so forth? I mean, I'm just curious what it's costing. I mean, the 125,000 figure is not that many employees. It's the top 10% of wage earners in the United States. You know, I'm just wondering why it wasn't a lower figure. But I guess if you can get back to me on that.
Yeah, I was going to get
I'd
back to you.
appreciate
Obviously, he
it.
doesn't have the information
Yeah,
today.
he doesn't have it.
But Mayor and Councilman Waring, the committee really talked a lot about where the line ought to be, and they went back and forth a little bit between 100 and 125, and they ultimately were concerned that when you get to 100,000 of total compensation that is applied to the pension, there was a lot of concern about how many lower-level employees it would hit, and that's why they landed on that 125 number.
I guess it's just for the viewers at home, kind of by definition now, this is an Arizona-skewed audience, it's a national statistic, so, but 90% of them, theoretically anyway, unless we have a particularly affluent audience, are making less, and probably a lot less than the number we're talking about. So they're probably justifiably wondering why only that? But fair enough. I guess I will say one thing. So the cap that some of these fellows were talking about that's been onerous, that was put in 2013, right, by voters, which this council sent to the ballot. I mean, I believe that was a 9-0 vote. I'm not sure anybody spoke against it. So are we surprised that there's this issue? Okay, I think Louis Schmidt was raising his hand, so I guess one person did. I just don't remember a lot of pushback, too. Marshall Pimentel, too. So the rest of you don't need to raise your hands if you did. I got the point. There was a couple, but I don't remember a lot of pushback and so forth during the campaign. You know, I think it passed with like 80% of the vote, something like that. So are we now surprised to be hearing these stories? I mean, it seems like that's something that should have been anticipated. I mean, we've had a lot more controversial stuff, I guess, come before, so why wasn't this pushback anticipated before that vote in 2013?
Okay, I don't know if that's a rhetorical question or an actual
Well-
question, but I think the point that you're making is
Well,
well
I just
made.
want to make sure we don't have unintended, obviously, we've got unintended consequences right back here 2 years later, less than 2 years later, really. So I am nervous voting for a new plan that's stating it is now the oracle and now we've solved this problem. How do I know 2 years from now I'm not going to be hearing the same thing?
All right, so how do we avoid unintended consequences?
I mean, in less than 2 years, I don't think that's an unreasonable, I would
I'm
hope
not
you'd be able to
sure,
model that
is
far
that an actual question or a rhetorical
Well, he's
question?
nodding like he's going to answer it, so let's
Mayor,
find out.
Vice Mayor Waring, I think in my presentation, addressed the major issue that turned things, and that really has to do with new governmental accounting standards that went into place, and we did not know how we were going to adjust our system to deal with those new standards. And we got a new actuary who also found some areas which we needed to make some dramatic changes to our assumptions. And we made a lot of changes to the assumptions after the pension reform occurred, and that's what really created the unintended consequence. As Sam said in his presentation, it went higher and faster, it went up faster than we had predicted, and it really is a result of the changes, the assumptions changes that we felt we needed to make.
Vice Mayor,
I can't predict the future.
Vice Mayor, do you have additional questions?
Oh, ye of little faith, he did have an answer, look at that. All right, so, yeah, I'm done, thank you, I appreciate it, Rick, thank you for trying.
Councilman Gates?
Thank you, Mayor. So first question is, what's our current unfunded liability for COPERS percentage? Or let me ask it a different way. What percentage are we funded in COPERS?
Mayor, members of the council, I'm sorry, I got to find the piece of paper. The current unfunded, the current funded ratio for the plan is 58.7%.
And how will the reform that we're discussing here today impact that? And I mean, you can either do it at, you know, and when you answer that, can you tell me what snapshot in time we're looking at?
Mayor, Councilman Gates, we do not expect that this change would negatively or positively impact the trajectory of our funded ratio. So that slide I had up there is expected to be about the same, with the exception of around $38 million of projected savings that should lower that curve just a little bit.
So the cost, so you're saying, because I mean, there were some big numbers that were thrown out, $261 million in additional cost because of this reform, and $303.7 million in savings. So those pretty much track one another over time. Is that what you're saying? Because I mean, we don't have, for example, more of the costs on one end and more of the savings are sort of tracking one another over time.
Mayor, Councilman Waring, yes, that's basically the case. And as Councilman Williams mentioned, there's a slight early, in the very first couple of years, because you're lowering the Tier 2 current employee rate, but you haven't yet hired on the new Tier 3 employees who are going to take a 20 to 25 or 22 to 28% benefit cut to pay for that. It takes a little while for the savings, just a couple of years, for the savings to equal the cost. And then it's all savings from there on out.
Can you talk about the cost difference? So again, the cost of 261 is based upon going to an 11% rate for the employees. 12%, if I'm not mistaken, that's what was presented as a staff recommendation to this committee, right?
Mayor, Councilman Gates, no, that was not a staff recommendation. That was a request in response to a request of the committee to model that plan with 12%. And then after they saw it, they saw there was some room to lower the rate even further to get closer to that ASRS competitive rate without going negative, if you will.
Okay.
Well, if I may to help bring this into perspective, that was part of the balancing act that this committee had to look at. If you go back to when the council had spent like $400,000 to do a comprehensive wage and benefits study that compared the city employees with other municipal and governmental employees, and then along with the private sector. And that's what Mr. Frank Percoli was talking about when he was saying one of the findings was that the city's employees were about 18% in pretty much most areas below the comparable wage and benefits of, or the wage and benefits of a comparable employee in the private sector. We were about at, in some areas below those with whom we were, those other municipalities with whom we were compared. Since that time is when you have taken this vote and reduced and saved the $600 million, and then the more, and then now we're almost at $900 million. And in that last one, we looked at the impact to the employee and their contribution rate to the pensions. So what we were trying to do is find something that fixed that, as Councilwoman Williams had talked about, and Councilman Valenzuela. That was one of the things we had to try to fix that, and then find a way to pay for it. So the cost is what it took to fix that. What it took to pay for it were the additional cuts to the employees in those benefits that help pay for that. And so what we're talking about is, in doing all of these things, that's what brought us into almost a $40 million savings. So, I mean, I think while we'd like to save a lot more and we'd like to see it go back down, we were already at a place where we could not recruit people and get them to stay. When you talk about the $125,000 one, that was another one that had to do with recruiting those that are at the very high steps. And by the way, those are the ones that are significantly below the private sector. If you have the same kind of responsibility, whether it's number of people or the wages or the budgets that you're looking at in the private sector, those are the ones that are really making a lot less than the private sector. So what we looked at was, what can we do to still garner savings and at the same time maintain a wage and price benefit that's going to be competitive and be able to continue to recruit some of the people that are going to be coming in at these higher levels. That's what that was.
Councilman Gates?
Yeah, no, thank you, and I completely agree. We've got a real fairness issue here. We've got a real recruitment issue with Tier 2. I don't question that at all. I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out how to best pencil it out. So back to my question then, what was the cost that the model came up with for 12%? Again, we know the cost was $261.7 million at 11%. What was at 12%?
Mayor, Councilman Gates, I don't have the specific numbers broken out. I might. Let me. Sam's going to work on it. I know what the total net savings is compared to this package, but not the specific cost.
Well, if you know the total net savings, then that probably wouldn't change, right? It should just be the delta between the net savings at 11 and the net savings at 12.
There are some things that interact. That's the only problem with it, but. Sam's doing calculations here. I'm worried about it because the actuary hasn't seen them. But let me just say that the total.
Well, what did you? I kind of feel like it's a replay of last night.
Yes.
What did you? Clearly, it was modeled and it was brought forward to the committee and they rejected it. But what was that number at least, just so we know what we're talking about?
Absolutely, Mayor, Councilman Gates. That was a total net savings of $94.3 million.
Okay, versus now we're talking 38.
38.8 million. The difference between those is about $55.5 million. And the committee's reasoning for going with the 11% instead of the 12% was really about ASRS is already in the 11s and going downward, and there was a concern about competitiveness.
And again, and I just want to address that directly, this comparison to ASRS. So you just told me we're 58% funded ratio, 58.7% funded ratio. Mm-hmm. ASRS is at 76% right now. So I understand the argument, but we just need to be very clear, and people need, let's have a good discussion on this. They are in two very different situations when it comes to their funding level. And then you also talked about, Vice Mayor Waring asked about the 125,000 versus like 100,000. And Rick, you said, well, we have to look at everything that rolls up into compensation, but we're talking Tier 3 here, right? So after all the reforms of this council, maybe we can just go over what makes up compensation for pensionability for Tier 3. I mean, what else is there other than what they actually make? Because we've gotten rid of a lot of the other spiking. So I just want to know what else is made up in that.
I mentioned, so things like shift differential and linguistic pay, overtime or comp time that is paid out, minor periodic sellbacks of sick and vacation, but not lump sum payouts at retirement.
Okay, so all those things are gone. The lump sum,
longevity, performance
vacation,
pay.
sick pay, that's all gone
Right,
now.
right.
That's no longer going to be spiking.
Not lump sum at retirement. There are some periodic payouts of vacation and sick leave that are allowed. Deferred compensation, the city's fringe benefit payment into deferred compensation is considered pensionable income. Those are the key issues.
Okay, and so to that point then, that's a great segue into deferred compensation. So this is the 401A. If this council decided that they wanted to pay for some real inequities that have been created for Tier 2, again, it's inequitable. I mean, you had a great slide up there that compared your Tier 1 versus your Tier 2 employee. If the council decided that they wanted to reduce some of the deferred comp for current employees, for Tier 1 employees, and I don't want to get into e-session material here, but we heard a lot about, well, we'd love to do things with current employees, but there's nothing we can do. You had the gavel on top of dollar bills saying we couldn't do that because of litigation concerns. But couldn't we make reductions in deferred comp for current Tier 1 employees to help pay for this inequity that our Tier 2 employees are having to deal with?
Mayor, Councilman Gates, the deferred comp, the fringe benefit that is paid by the city for various employee groups is in the pay plan adopted by the council and in our negotiated contracts for the vast majority of our employees. So the deferred compensation that you're referring to is a negotiated benefit, and it's considered part of the compensation package by our employees and our unions and associations. So if the council made a decision to not allow or reduce the amount of fringe payments, that would likely have to come through the negotiation process.
But there's no legal, and I understand that, but that contract comes to an end next year, right?
Yes.
So there's no legal, we don't have the same legal considerations that we've gone through ad nauseum as it relates to other portions of obviously the pension.
That is correct. But the value of the lost DCP would likely be renegotiated into some other form of total compensation for the unit. And so the savings may not be materialized. It would be subject to our fair, meet and confer. So, in other words, if it were somehow illegal to pay that, that would have to be renegotiated, and so we couldn't really project a savings amount related to that. In addition, it's not a one-for-one replacement because those fringe payments are tax deferred and are not subject to FICA, and so we also have to take into consideration that aspect, that if you're replacing some or all of that in the negotiation process, it's actually going to cost everybody more.
But those are things that we can do.
Yes.
We don't, and we will not face litigation.
That is correct, as long as it's effective after the contract or through a renegotiation of existing contracts.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all my questions.
Mayor,
Mr. Grice, did you have a comment on that?
just along those lines, while it's not something that we discussed, actually we looked at some of this in the committee as well, and what it is it's called an issue of mandatory collective bargaining.
Right.
And what happened during the contract negotiations, the city of Phoenix primarily deals with a thing called it's across the board. So it's pattern bargaining. So whatever one group gets, if they're going to get a 3% across the board, back when we were getting those like 10 years ago, then everybody would get 3%. Some took a little bit more in pay, some took more in dental benefits, some took a little bit more in deferred comp. So instead of taking it in the paycheck, they took it in deferred comp, and that's what I think he's talking about. If you were to take that away, then it should go back into the pay. Is it legal? Sure, just like it's legal to cut their pay. But that's what you'd be doing. You'd be cutting their pay, or you'd be cutting their benefits. That was the negotiated item. That's why across the board, different bargaining units have significantly less amounts of, and really it's not a lot, but that's why.
But
So
I
just wanna
appreciate
make sure
that
we're
very much, Mr. Grice. I think what the point Councilman Gates is getting at is that issues of compensation are subject to mandatory bargaining, and we do bargain every year. But it is legal for the council to issue reductions in compensation, as we did last year as part of the negotiated contract. I think what he was exploring was not pattern bargaining, but exploring the concept of having a different compensation system for Tier 1 versus Tier 2 to make up the equity. And we could explore that, I guess, at a future time if members of the council want. But I think he was trying to establish that that is within the council discretion, and it's
Mayor.
within the council discretion. Did you have other questions?
Mayor, can I just to your point?
Yes.
That still does not help Tier 2. And part of this ad hoc and what we're trying to do here is while remaining on the path of solvency, and this does take care of the unfunded liability, but while we are doing that, remaining a city that is in a position of strength to attract the best talent we possibly can, and in doing so, again, saving an additional nearly $40 million.
Thank you for that point. Other comments, members of the council? Councilor Tizio, you had some questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got just a couple comments, but then I've got a series of questions. I just want to make sure that get on the record. I don't blame the employees. I don't see this as an unintended consequence. I think everybody knew that pension costs were going to continue to climb, and I do remember conversations occurring where the Tier 2 employees were going to be picking up the bill for the current employees. Rick, remember that. I wouldn't even use your name. I don't do that normally. But I do remember that conversation occurring. So this is not something that's unexpected from anything. What is amazing to me is that every time the one that was passed by the voters was sold as the plan, this is the one that's going to solve the problems. Well, it turned out that it didn't. Matter of fact, that was the one that created the problem. And because every time that you do a gimmick, because this is just another gimmick, every time you do a gimmick, you never fix the problem. If you don't ever focus on the problem and do those structural things that need to happen, you're going to continually go down this path. But I do want to thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank others on the council for making this an issue, because now, depending on what the voters do on this, I don't see how they vote for it or against it. It really doesn't do much but create, like I said, a gimmick. But it's going to keep this issue alive, and the citizens can take a look at this and come up with changes for next year, because that's really the only way this is going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen from up here. One of the things that Councilman Gates mentioned was that there is a difference between ASRS and this system. There's a reason for that, because the model that you're doing right now is the model that they gave up, 15 or almost 20 years ago. So this same model you're adopting here is the model that the state of Arizona said it doesn't work 15 or 20 years ago. So this is the same model. And every time you put a cap on your pension ability for employees, and I don't blame the employees, quite frankly, I feel bad for them because they got caught in the middle of this gimmick, quite frankly. They shouldn't have been. But until they're at least given a choice, an option to be able to pick the type of plan that they want, one would be a full DC plan versus this. Why not? That's such a basic thing that employees should at least be given an opportunity to do that. But I've got a series of questions. One last thing too, and I'm waiting for the numbers too, but total retirement costs, because the media always picks one or two items. Total retirement costs are going to continue to climb. That's my projection. But they've got to be north of $300 million today, and they've climbed every year. So I'm just waiting to see where we're expecting those total retirement costs to be in the future. Ed, I've got a city manager. You mentioned, because if you look at it, the savings are probably going to be mostly back-ended because you got to wait till you hire employees at that $125,000. What is the immediate cost for the next 5 years with the current plan?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, just in broad numbers from memory, in the first couple of years. I believe there's a year where it might be about $1 million. So I'd say somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million in the general fund. And what I told Vice Mayor Waring was that is a number that we can accommodate within our projected increase in contingency funds for those years. So we, from looking at that, believe we can handle that within that. Now it's a trade-off, but it's doable.
Is that the first year or the second? What year?
It's in 16, 17.
And that's about 500 to $1 million. And then what would it be in 17, 18?
I believe by 17, 18, it turns into savings, net savings.
And the net, just to answer the question, over 5 years, if you add up the couple of years of cost and then the 3 years of savings, the net in 5 years is $1.4 million in savings.
Okay. And then the guarantee, the $125,000, and I want to make sure this is on the record as well. The $125,000 is indexed to inflation. So that's a number that changes every year based on what index. We talked about that earlier.
I think it's the Western State CPI.
Which is about what right now?
I couldn't tell you that, Councilman.
Something like
But
whatever
the idea behind the indexing is basically that, $125,000 today is going to be, $200,000 in 20 years. You know, so.
No, but I want to make sure that the public's aware that there's an indexing there. The other deals with the 2%. It can come off without clarity up there, but it is a 2% guarantee. It's basically a guarantee that employees are going to be getting it. It's not a cap. It's a guarantee that they're going to be receiving that. There's nothing that stops the city council from giving more. Is that correct?
So the way it would be structured is in the COPERS section of the charter, we would write amended language for the COPERS section of the charter that would describe this stacked hybrid plan, and it would describe the 2% that would be contributed by the city for that portion of income, final average
above
salary, whatever,
125.
Qualified income above 125. What is separated and negotiated through pay is not addressed one way or the other in that. But in the COPERS, in the pension section of the charter, it would be limited to that 2%.
Okay, so this 2% contribution to DC above cap, above the 125 cap is what you're talking about, not the 2%. That could change that cost if negotiated amounts are higher.
I don't believe so. It's going
Why
to
wouldn't
say
that?
the city shall contribute 2% of that person's, what's the right word, compensable income or compensation.
Right.
It can't go higher or lower for that for the pension element.
But the employee can receive more than 2%.
Not in their pension contribution.
Right. They can get it in their direct contribution in their DC plan.
If the city, nothing in what we would put in the charter amendment would affect the city's pay and benefit practices. It only would affect the pension practices.
And so would that also be applicable to current employees then? The
No.
2%? So it's only new employees that are above 125?
Or
The current
correct.
employees would not have to worry about the 2%? and they
Mayor,
wouldn't get
Councilman
addition.
DeCiccio, that is correct.
I just want to make sure, we covered this in my office, so I just want to make sure that gets on the record. The other is the, let's see. What are current employees? Oh, pension spiking. We keep hearing that pension spiking's done. Is pension spiking still in the budget this year? I mean, do we still have to pay for pension spiking?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, I can't answer that question because you define pension spiking different than Councilman Nowakowski defines.
The way I
pension.
define it. Can you, the way I define it, I mean, that's anything over and above what is based basically on your compensation salary.
I think I described the elements of pay that are included and really by omission excluded from employee pensions that were the result of your pension spiking reforms.
Well,
Councilman DeCisi, can I just follow up on this?
why don't you follow up on
that-
this
that
one?
just
Because
real,
it's so misleading
Yeah.
to the public to give the public the impression that pension spiking stopped, when in fact that's just a lie. It still is continuing. And then just say it. Just say, well, yeah, people are still able to get more than what's on their salary. Just say it, because that's what it is. But go ahead,
This
Bill.
is just because this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So deferred compensation, let's take tier 3, deferred compensation. I think what you told me is that will be part of, well, there's two, because there's 2 deferred compensation plans. There's the existing one. Would that be part of compensation for pension purposes?
When the city council did pension spiking reform, you took out a bunch of elements that were previously counted for pension purposes. Deferred compensation, the fringe payment that we were discussing earlier, was not removed from that definition.
And in addition to that, the additional 2% deferred comp for people over 125, again, that would also be calculated in final compensation for pension purposes?
Oh, yeah, correct. That would not be counted because it is beyond the defined benefit.
So that's not, but the other, again, the question is, could this council say, or could this council refer to the voters that deferred compensation no longer be part of the spiking calculation? Or could the council do it on its own? Let's take tier 3 first.
Yes.
Okay.
For tier 3, absolutely. There's no question. You can refer changes to, you probably need to refer it in the chart, be more specific in the charter.
So, but is your answer different for tier 2 and tier 1?
Yes, there are some legal questions about whether or not you could do that, and that was thoroughly debated a year or so ago.
Okay, thank you.
And just to finish up on the pension spiking, current employees that we have right now, tier 1, are they allowed to use vacation and sick leave and they're basically their 401k as pensionability, as for pensionability purposes?
So the fringe payments to deferred to the defined contribution plan, yes, that is counted as part of compensation. For lump sum sick and vacation payments at retirement, those are counted for tier 1 employees up to the amount, the cap that the council put on when you adopted the snapshot for sick and vacation. As you know, both of those items are in litigation right now.
Thank you. And that's probably the most technical way to answer it, but bottom line is, to the general public, they see salary as the determiner of pension. Pension spiking literally adds in your turned in vacation leave, your unused sick leave, your deferred compensation, and then that is what the general public sees as spiking. That is still continuing on here at the City of Phoenix. So when the politicians and everybody says that pension spiking stopped, it's just not true. It's not true. And I want to make sure that that's on the record. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, any other comments by members of this council? Well, as Mayor, I just want to say thank you to Councilman Williams and Councilman Dawes. Oh, Councilman Nowakowski, I apologize. Go ahead.
You know, Mayor, we were here about a year and a half ago, and we were talking about how Tier 2 was going to get affected by all this, and it's like deja vu. And it really makes me sick to sit here. And I'm going to be honest with everyone. It makes me sick to the stomach to hear this, and then when we walk the halls and we hear the Tier 2 individuals and their stories that they never thought that they were going to get cut so much, up to 14% of their pay. And the stories of how can we survive? We want this cash at hand. We don't want it during retirement. We want it now. And is there any way you can fix it? And it's sad. And I feel just like most of our employees that were put against the wall here, and this is the best thing for what's happening to our employees now, and I feel like we're being forced. One of the things I asked for last time, and I'm going to ask again for it, is that if we really want to be a tier 1 type of employee where people would come to the city of Phoenix because we are the best in the state, where people start recruiting our employees because we have the best and we can recruit and attract the best, then we need to be on an even playing field. And one of the things that helps us is by that rule of 85 that the state has, that most of the cities have, and the county has. Right now, we're at the rule of 87. And I know that we're talking about 2038, but I mean, if it extends a couple more years and we can allow our employees that rule of 85, and then we can actually use that as a recruiting tool, that we're not going to be a disadvantage against the state and other cities and county. I just asked as a friendly amendment, once again, that we adapt the rule of 85 instead of 87. If we're going to take it out there to the voters, that the voters decide. And I think that we need to be competitive with other cities, with the state and the county, and that rule of 85 is something that I believe is going to help us. And at the same time, all the other things that that this committee has done. I feel very strong about this, and I ask for a friendly amendment that we lower the 87 to 85. I know it's going to take us maybe up to 2040 instead of 2080, but I mean till 2038. But I think that our employees deserve it. I think that the city of Phoenix needs to become that point of pride of where people want to come work for us. And I'm asking for a friendly amendment. And if not, I'd like an explanation why not.
All right, second, I'll take it in the form of a substitute motion instead of a friendly amendment. The substitute motion would be in the form of adopting the ad hoc committee's recommendations, but going from a rule of 87 to rule of 85. Do we have a second on that motion? All right, dies for lack of a second. Councilman Nowakowski, continue.
And it's really sad. It's sad that we're not taking our employees first. And once again, I'm going to have a hard time sleeping tonight, but I mean, our backs are against the wall. Our employees are being put up as sacrifices again, and I'm going to have to be forced to vote yes on this. But it's really against my will, and I just feel very bad for our employees. So I'll continue to fight for you all, and probably another 2 years we'll be here with the same situation and with some other terms. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman Nowakowski. Any other comments by members of this council?
Mayor.
Councilman Gates?
I would like to offer a friendly amendment as well based upon this discussion. I think with Tier 3, the deferred compensation, again, we're committed up here to ending spiking. The deferred compensation being part of final average salary, being part of your compensation that your pension is based upon, it shouldn't be in there. Frankly, I didn't understand why we didn't remove this for Tier 2. We should remove it for Tier 3 respectfully, and so I would offer that as a friendly amendment to the maker of the motion.
Mayor?
Okay, first off, a friendly amendment has to be accepted by the maker of the motion, but I don't think it was intended as a friendly amendment. I think it was intended as a substitute motion. And so we got a second on the substitute motion. Councilman Williams, please, your question.
I would want staff to be able to explain if that's possible, because the new employees still fall under bona fide contracts, don't they? That have that in there?
City manager, do you have something? I apologize.
Yeah.
Our city attorney has
Yeah, Mayor, the council has adopted a one amendment rule. So if it's treated as a second amendment, that's improper under council rules.
Okay, so there was one substitute motion already. That motion died for lack of a second. You're saying that we cannot do any other? Okay.
Under council rules, then the council is to vote on the original motion.
Okay, so Councilman Gates, because we already had the one substitute motion by Councilman Nowakowski, it died for lack of a second. This is not a proper motion. We'll have to vote on the underlying motion. If that is unsuccessful, then we can move forward with the proposed substitute motion.
And I'll respect the ruling of the chair on that. My only request is that this is not the end of the road. I mean, we're going to have ballot language come back, and I would ask that, you know, when the ballot language is brought back to us, that this, along with some of the other issues, be considered in the spirit of getting to a place where, frankly, a majority, if not, you know, unanimous, members of this council can be supportive. We're in here addressing these issues now, and we ought to have a willingness, quite frankly, to look at these other issues when folks were, you know, this didn't go through our subcommittee structure, and there was a very limited number of folks who were part on the ad hoc. And again, that's the mayor's authority to choose who's on there. But I think we ought to have the ability to look at other issues, because this is really the first time for the rest of us that we're really able to dig into this. And I appreciate the mayor giving us, you know, significant time to have this discussion and to have access to staff. Thank you.
Hey, Vice Mayor, you had a question?
I did. So what's our timeline to put this on the ballot? What's the last date we could vote to send something to the ballot?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Waring, currently the schedule for the form of the ballot, which is when you adopt the ballot form, is April 15th, the April 15th formal, in order for us to have time to produce the ballot and allow for arguments and that sort of thing. Backing up from that, our intent was to refer this and other items on the, I believe, Mr. Zerker said the 18th, but I think it was March 25th for this particular item.
But we have until April, whatever you just said.
Correct. We do.
So we got some wiggle room, I guess,
Let me just
at least one meeting, I'm sure.
Let me just give one word of caution on that, and which I have done in the past, which is we've got an attorney who's going to very carefully put together ballot language based upon your direction. And of course, that can be amended as we move forward, and we can be prepared for any amendments you might make. But we need to make sure that the ballot language is done right and it is not subject to misinterpretation and that sort of thing. But you do have time, if you wish, to do that.
So, I mean, I think Councilman DeCiccio, Councilman Gates, myself, we had questions that, I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but we did ask substantive questions that it sounds like there could be answers, financial answers, but you don't have them in front of you. Councilman Nowakowski made a motion to which I understand people were like, well, what does that do? You don't have that information in front of you. Given a couple weeks, I'm sure you probably could have the financial impact. I'm not saying I agree necessarily, no offense, with his motion, but he at least deserves an answer. It sounds like we've got a couple weeks. We could continue this to a later date and still make the deadline to get it on the ballot, and you'd have the answers for our questions.
Mayor. All right, thank you very much. So we've had a tremendous amount of discussion on this issue. This will be coming back with the proposed form of language on what date?
March 25th.
On March 25th. Okay.
Mayor, may I ask a quick question of Gates's
Councilman DeCiccio, you may have a third bite at the apple. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that, Mayor. What Councilman Gates was requesting here really begins to really stop pension spiking for your new employees. And if we can't even do that, and so I just want to give the rest of the council the opportunity here, if you want to start looking at trying to bring some of the more fiscal members of this council on board, if you can't even bring on board and I just want to give you a thought here, those of us that really do want to stop spiking, at least moving forward, just keep that an open mind as we move toward the March 25th. I don't think that was a heavy lift, but it was a very small step, but it was a step in the right direction that would actually stop pension spiking. And I think some of us would like to go further, but at the end of the day, it is a small step. And if we can't even do that as a council, then I think we've got a bigger problem here, Mayor. Thank you.
That's not a procedural.
All right, so Vice Mayor, fourth bite.
Thank you. So we could vote on this today or not, but let's assume it passes. But we come back on the 25th to do the language, so we can change the substance of it then? There are amendments then? Okay.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, yes.
So the issues could be addressed. You could still come back, I think you should anyway, frankly, but with the questions that several of us asked, the analysis of Councilman Nowakowski's motion, you could come back with that, and we could incorporate that into the ballot language on the 25th of March.
If the council wishes to do that, we can do that.
All right, thank you very much. Councilwoman Pastor?
This is one of, just like yesterday's vote, but this is one of our, another big vote that we are taking. And as stated by some of my colleagues, I feel like we really it didn't go through a committee, and I know we didn't have time. So go through a committee process and be vetted so that all these questions could have been answered by the time it hits us. And I feel right now we're having a really good dialogue and discussion on this. But I do think, I feel my colleagues in the struggle that we're all having to get to this process. So what I had heard is that there is a possibility on the next time you come to see us, or we're going to write an amendment, that some of these questions could be answered and then further discussed if, well, you know, if it can be further discussed and we can also have another healthy dialogue and then determine really what language needs to be placed in there. Is
that a question?
It is.
Okay, Mayor,
Could be
Mayor,
a
Councilwoman
statement and
Pastor, it would be very difficult for us to draft ballot language in time for the ballot if you don't give us some direction today. If you have further issues that you would like us to research and make a presentation or analysis of in preparation for your review of that language on the 25th, if you give us that direction today, that would be, we could respond to that.
Mayor?
Okay, Councilman Williams, please.
So we have a motion on the floor, don't we, to push this forward?
We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. As I try to do, I was deferring to people to get all the questions answered that they can here today. What we've heard here today is that it sounds like there may be some additional answers to questions, and then people have the opportunity at a future meeting if they want to change the form of the ballot, but we have to today give direction to the staff so that they can go create the ballot language that would appear before us. Again, that ballot, that would not be, we have a chance to change that ballot language future time, but certainly my recommendation is that we move forward here today so we can give clear direction to this, to our staff to come back on the 18th and then obviously vote on the ballot language.
So the motion on the floor would do that?
The motion on the floor would do exactly that.
Then I think we need to move forward with that motion with the understanding that staff will bring back answers. And we have the ability to make changes if the majority of the council feels that way.
All right. So we have a motion. We have a second. I just want to take a short moment to say I know this incredible amount of work that's gone in by Councilman Williams and Valenzuela, Pico Reyes, and other members of the ad hoc committee. I really appreciate going the extra mile. This committee did not engage in partisan or ideological debate, and I think they did exactly what was right for our city, for our taxpayers, by crafting a very common sense, fiscally responsible set of proposed pension reforms. These reforms will, as we saw today, save money, improve our competitiveness, but make sure our system is sustainable over the long term. Under this new system, the kind of sky-high pension benefits that we have seen, like the one received by our previous city manager, will be gone for good under this new system. We've come a long way. And in the 3 years since I've been mayor serving with this council, we've had a lot of work to do to get our civilian pension fund back on track. We've had 3 different measures, including ending pension spiking, and those will save taxpayers nearly $870 million. But even with this reform, we still have pension issues here in Phoenix because the legislature has let the state-run public safety system run out of control. That's costing us way too much. We're going to see that more and more over the next few years. So I hope that my colleagues will join me in calling for the legislature and our governor to take action in the very near future on the PSPRS reforms. And I know that representatives of fire and representatives of police are ready, willing, and able to step up to the table to be part of the solution to make that necessary reform. I want to thank them publicly for being willing to be part of the solution. And again, call on the governor and the legislature to immediately take up that offer and get the job done for cities like Phoenix across the state. So with that, roll call.
DeCiccio. Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
No.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, the item passes on a 6-3 vote. We'll see you then in a few weeks with some of the ballot language. I believe that is the last item on the formal agenda, so this meeting will officially adjourn, noting that there are a few more citizen requests on this item. Michael Cornelius, you have been so patient.